or 8, you can watch the show twice. Welcome to the program, and we have a lot to share with you as we get ready to head to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Georgia relishing underdog role. How about that? Dogs aren't underdogs very often, but they are Saturday. Can they pull it off? Wouldn't that be a big upset? Well, not really, according to FPI. LSU only a 56th percentile. Shouldn't they be more? Got a 2 versus 4 game. LSU could lose title game and reach the playoffs. Has anyone heard that one before? No, I haven't heard that one either. Okay, here we go. One more weekend of this, and then we can get on with the rest of our lives. I think LSU is a pretty big favorite to get to the playoffs. Georgia, not a favorite. Anyway, let's give you something you don't know. This is Bruce Feldman. He will be with us later. I played against Joe freaking Burrow. I actually said something other than freaking. I said Finebaum. Anyway, welcome to the program. You can tell we're in a giddy mood. We had a little Christmas party, and I'm drunk with eggnog. Actually, I'm not, but I just thought I would test the audience's patience with the host. We're glad to be back. If I could just talk to you for a second, how glad I am to get away from New York and the cold, the ice, the snow, and the dirt. But I'm glad to be here back in the South, and let's get going here with a lot on the agenda today. Chip Towers covers the Dogs. Glenn Guilbeau, what do you think? You think a guy named Guilbeau covers the Dogs or the LSU Tigers? And the aforementioned Bruce Feldman from The Athletic. Didn't we have somebody that used to work here, went to work for The Athletic? Nobody remembers his name, huh? That's the rumor. Anyway, let's also take your phone calls at 855-242-7285. It's always the same, 855-242-7285. And one of my favorite callers is now Augie from New Orleans. Augie always puts us on the griddle. And Augie, good to have you on board here.
Hey, Paul. I'm not going to put you in the griddle today, but, I can't watch your show, so I got to listen to the podcast. And I think this whole Alabama out of the playoffs thing is like an Irish wake. You keep talking about it long after the body's dead. But I think it's time to move on, headed to the ATL for the game.
All right.
I've been listening to your podcasts for the last few days, and I'm really shocked at the number of callers that are filleting you over your King is dead comments. That is that Saban and Bama, their total domination, the SEC is done. I didn't know you before you got to ESPN. And apparently in the old days, according to the regulars that call you, you were sort of an Alabama apologist. But you moved on to the big time. You're now at ESPN. And you'd lose total credibility if you kept carrying Bama's water. So I actually appreciate you. And I think you give out the right criticism when it's deserved. LSU is really becoming strongly relevant now. And to continue to talk about Alabama in the good old days, I think, it's over. It's time to move on. But I got to say, your name is become very popular in a lot of Internet articles, especially from the Utes. And as Judge Chamberlain Halleck from My Cousin Vinny asked, what's a Ute? And I see where the Utah fans and the University of Utah are firing you over the comments about their program, how you disparage not only the university's football team, but the whole state by not even wanting to step foot in it. And I do read they're bringing up the old Sugar Bowl where they beat Bama 31-17. I mean, they really did drub them that year. And I've seen Utah play a few games on Fox, and they're not bad, but I'm just skeptical of the competition in the Pac-12. It's really hard to judge how good Utah really is because, they're playing some teams that, to me, are suspect. But what's your take on
for those who have not been following this, and if you haven't been, you're wise. I was on Get Up yesterday, and Mike Greenberg asked me about who I thought would be the fourth team, and I was just kidding around like I do, and I said nobody in the country wants to see Utah in the playoffs, and You would have thought I had declared war against that state because I've never seen more reaction. And by the way, the reaction from the Ute fans don't bother me, or whatever they call themselves. It's from the hypocritical, disingenuous frauds in the media who have to pontificate and position themselves as the self-righteous arbiters of mankind by attacking me. I mean, listen, I don't care that Utah fans are unhappy. They should be. They're a proud football program. They have 14 fans, and they should embrace every one of those fans. And the ratings from the state of Utah would put me out of business. But I've met Kyle Willingham before. He's a very good coach. I do remember the game in the Sugar Bowl that Alabama lost, really a national championship game against Florida in the SEC game, and they didn't care any more about the Sugar Bowl than Georgia did last year. I mean, if Utah wants to live off of what happened in 2008, all the power to them. As far as ever stepping foot in that state, I have never been to Utah. I've been close.
They got some nice mountains.
Yeah, I've flown over it. And you know what? I've lived 60 years and change and have never made it to Utah. You know what? I'm probably never going to.
Well, you know, Paul, maybe that's what's missing in your life. See how much better your life could be had you been in Utah. But I
will say this, though. One more thing. If Utah wins the national championship, then I will offer myself as a participant in their national championship parade. I would hope, if given an invitation, I will lead the parade in whatever city the University of Utah is in.
You need to put something on the line, Paul. Something like, if Utah wins a national championship, you're going to wear a toupee.
No, but listen, I just volunteered to go to Utah. What else do you want me to do?
Well,
I mean, by the way, I had to use my passport this morning in New York for identify. Will a passport get me into the state of Utah?
I think you have to have a green card.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say any more because then I'll go down a road that really will get me in trouble.
One last question.
But Augie, I will go to Utah if they win the national championship and participate in their parade, and I'll lead the parade. I'll wear. What's a Utah mascot?
The Utes. It's an Indian. The Wasatch Mountains.
I'll wear the mascot head or the whatever. Danny Brand, you're from Utah. What's it? It's a bee, you said?
Yeah, you need a beehive.
Okay.
It's the beehive state.
That's the state symbol, not the university symbol.
It's the university represents the state, you know.
Yeah, I'll wear the
Utah
big
Ute tribe.
I'll wear the big U on my forehead.
But, Paul, let me ask you this question. Do you think, because Alabama really doesn't – I mean, it sounds like they're going to be forced to play in a bowl game. Are they going to do what they did against Utah back in, 2009 or whatever, and roll over?
You know, I don't care what Nick Saban says when they get the official invitation next Sunday. I think the rumors are they're going to the Citrus Bowl, maybe against Michigan. If they go there, Saban will talk about how excited – They will. They won't be excited to go there.
Of course, they're not going to be excited. But are they going to do what they did against Utah to the SEC? And that was an embarrassment.
Well, you know, by the way, it happened against Oklahoma a couple of years ago as well when they got knocked out.
Okay. Well, anyway, Paul. Hey, have a good time and a good trip. And you never know, I might run into you. Take care, buddy.
Can't wait. Anybody want to go to Utah?
No.
Have you been to Utah?
Yes.
What do you do in Utah? Salt Lake? Is the University of Utah in Salt Lake City?
Yes.
I was supposed to go to BYU once to cover a game, and I never got there. BYU and Utah is not the same thing?
No.
Okay.
Different.
So there's BYU, there's Utah. Do they have any other schools out there?
Pretty much it.
Utah State? So this state with 100 people has 3 major universities? That's amazing. Andre is up next. Mitt Romney's a senator from Utah.
Wow.
Coach, thanks for taking my call, Coach Finebaum. First of all, you know how to throw a mean good punch, Coach. I mean, a mean good punch. Are you safer in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or Utah right now, Coach?
Yeah, I feel pretty good anywhere I go, but but Utah.
Okay.
Is that where Donnie
Listen,
and Marie are
thought-
from?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
from
wow.
Utah.
I like it there. What's up, Danny?
Coach,
Oh, okay.
I enjoyed talking to Jim yesterday.
That was great.
Yeah, it was, man. And listen, if you're civil with Jim, he will be civil with you. But if you run off the rails with him, he's going right off the rails with you. But I really enjoyed talking to Jim, and I like Jim. I really do. What do you think about the game this weekend, Coach? I'm here in Atlanta. The tailgate is already kicking off out there. It's nice weather. It's probably in the mid-60s out there right now.
That's great.
Yeah, what do you think, Coach? When are you going to get here?
I'm getting there tomorrow morning. Because I came back from New York today, I decided I really needed to go home and look at all my fan mail from Utah.
Coach, listen, you were telling the truth. No one wants to see Utah in this thing.
I mean, my exact quote was, let's be honest, the country does not want to see Utah in the college football playoff. That's what I said yesterday.
No. But you're a straight shooter, Coach. That's just how it is. And the guy that just called that was coming up from New Orleans, he doesn't understand that you used to get hate mail from Alabama fans because some of the statements you've made. And so he was wrong about you carrying the water for Alabama there, Coach. You're a straight shooter, and you need to explain to the young man that you're a Tennessee alumni. You graduated from the University of Tennessee up in Knoxville. So, but anyway, I just wanted to let you know I enjoyed talking to Jim yesterday. And, people have to understand if you're civil with Jim, even if you disagree with him, or if he disagrees with you, he will be civil with you. But anyway, Coach.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're the first person I've ever heard Jim respect on this show.
I don't know about that, but I enjoy Jim, and he's a passionate person. Whether you agree with his views or not, he believes in what he believes in, and that's what makes America what America is. We have the right to disagree with what people believe and do it in a nonviolent way. Hey, thanks for taking my call, Coach Finebaum.
Thank you very much. So I do appreciate that, and cannot wait to learn more as we move throughout the program today. You can give us a ring at 855-242-7285, and we are back after this. Well, we got all-day coverage tomorrow from Atlanta. So we welcome you back, and let's continue our Thursday tailgating. And where are we, guys?
Well, Paul, Kubiak is already in Atlanta doing all the groundwork for our big show tomorrow, so I'm flying solo here in the control room, but we took the tailgate to my former home state of Utah, and they're not fans of you here, Paul. We got protests going on here on campus in Salt Lake City, and I don't know, Paul, this is not fine, Mom. They're pretty upset with this take. I mean, do you have anything to say to these protesters gathered behind me?
Listen, I'm all for young people expressing themselves, even if it's against me.
Yeah, certainly that's democracy in action, but you really struck a nerve with this idea that people wouldn't want to see Utah. I grew up here, and I know what it's like to have sort of that chip on your shoulder of the big national media, punching down at you and making you feel you don't belong.
To Utah's credit, I mean, they do live in a state where BYU once won a not even legitimate, but they won an illegitimate national championship by playing in some off-brand bowl. What's the Holiday Bowl?
The Holiday Bowl, of course.
People realizing, I think it was 1984.
Michigan,
BYU played in the Holiday Bowl and beat an 8-4 Michigan team, or 7
and claimed the national title.
I mean, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs today.
It's true. We used to joke about that when I was growing up, about how suspect that title was. Even as a kid, not really knowing too much about the machinations of the API and the AP and the UPI polls, I was like, how does BYU claiming this national title? But
what's it like to grow up in Utah?
It's difficult. It's harder to do if you're a rebellious teen like I was. It's harder to do rebellious teen things, but we managed and we found a way, and I got out as quick as I can. And to be honest, I haven't really been back too much since.
Help educate. I don't know the answer. I mean, I know BYU is a Mormon school. Is it
correct?
Is the majority of the state Mormon?
Yes, heavy majority, and I am actually not. Although I got nothing against people who are, but it was different. It made for an experience growing up for sure.
I remember watching Mitt Romney's speech about being Mormon. I thought it was a very poignant moment during that campaign.
That's something.
I'm for anyone who believes in their religion, and anyone who believes in supporting the show too. 855-242-7285. Greg is up next.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey, I caught some early footage this morning of you informing Jalen Rose about the Michigan fan base, and he seemed to disagree. But
I genuinely felt sorry for Jalen yesterday, trying to defend the University of Michigan.
Yeah, it's hard to defend something that's indefensible, and you made the point to him that it's not a rivalry; it's an annual beatdown. And so the rivalry is when they alternate winning and losing. So I thought that was kind of funny. And did I hear correctly that Jim called yesterday?
He did.
Did he give you a photo of his yearbook?
No.
Okay, I was just checking because, when you were in Tuscaloosa, I showed up and I actually brought coffee thinking he would bring the scones that you had asked for, and he was a no-show. But glad to see he's still alive and doing well. Anyways, I just thought I would call and say that the team up north has to win a few games against Ohio State for it to be considered a rivalry, and hopefully when they hire a coach who can do that, then it'll be one. Thanks, and have a great day, Paul.
Thank you, Greg. Jim is up next.
Let me go. I didn't expect that, but let me address that old man. I'm not glad he's alive and well. I promise you that, and I mean that. I'm not glad about. And in other words, the feeling is mutual, you old goober. But what I called about, Paul, was seriously this. I'm trying not to get upset. I'm going to be sober, Paul. Do you honestly mean your statement that you made to Andre that he's the first person I have been respectful to on
Jim,
this show?
He's the first person I don't remember you yelling at.
See, there you go. You said something and now you change it.
Well, Jim, I don't know how to break this to you, but I don't remember everything I've ever said about you, okay?
Well, I've been respectful to you many times before you started being disrespectful to me. But here I go. I don't want to get mad.
Okay, Jim, why don't let's start over. Let's be respectful to each other, okay?
I appreciate very much, Andre, what you said. You're right. You're spot on right, exactly. I guess I'm like Trump in that respect, or he's like me.
Oh yeah,
or both.
Jim, does everything have to be like Trump? I mean, is that your entire life?
Do you
revolve around the axis of the president?
Do you have to interrupt me every time I call?
I really kind of do whatever I want to do.
Why don't you interrupt Greg, Paul?
Well,
why don't you interrupt Iman?
I've never found anything to interrupt him about.
You know why you do it with me?
Well, he doesn't mention Trump every time he calls in.
No, because I blast you about how sorry your show is, but I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas in spite of you, Paul.
Jim, we're still 3 weeks away from Christmas. Maybe Jim's not coming back. I thought it was a fair point. But listen, I don't care one way or the other about Jim's politics, but I do care about this show, and I don't really feel like everything has to be related to a political candidate. But if Jim feels like he needs to do that, then fine with me. Let's continue. And Dan is in Louisiana. Hello, Dan.
Hey, Paul. Thanks a bunch. Paul, today I'm calling. I wanted to talk and tell you why I think LSU is going to beat the tar out of Georgia. Okay?
Well, go right ahead. Don't keep us waiting.
Okay. It's no doubt Georgia's good, but I think there's, just key areas across the board that they're lacking. They're saying Fromm's a game manager now, and that's not a good, that's not good when they call you that. And I think the wide receivers are lacking. I don't see how their defensive backs and linebackers are going to keep up with LSU's backs. You know, I think LSU is more prepared with the season and the division they're in, with the games that they played. You know, I think Kirby's coaching philosophy, you know, is another problem that could show up. You know, possession, you know, keeping the ball away from LSU is not going to keep them from scoring. And field goals are not going to win the game. You know, I was just wanting to know what you thought about some of them things I said.
Well, I appreciate the call. Listen, I just can't wait to watch the game. I'm not all that key on analyzing it. I'll leave it to the experts. I mean, I think it's self-explanatory that Georgia has deficiencies, but they also are a pretty resilient team, and I think they've got at least a puncher's chance to win the game. I said a puncher's chance. Chuck is in New York. Chuck, you there?
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Okay, Chuck, how you doing?
I just want a couple minutes of your time.
Yeah, yes, you got it.
Now, let's talk about the SEC championship. It's LSU's offense versus Georgia's defense. Now, if LSU wins this game comfortably, in my opinion, they should be slightly favored over Ohio State to win the national championship. Now, I know the spread's 7 and it's in Atlanta. It could go up by game time. Now, I can't guarantee this win like I did with LSU over Alabama, but that's my pick. I just wanted to let you know.
Well, that's great, Chuck. Appreciate that. Jay, man, we got some good ones. Jay is up next in the ATL. Hello, Jay.
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call. I was curious to know your thoughts on what I consider to be a discrepancy in the polls. The playoff committee has OSU and LSU in that order, but the AP writers and the coaches poll have LSU number one in both cases at a 2-to-1 margin in terms of first place votes. That to me is a disconnect. You got thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. Well, Jay, remember one thing. Those polls cease to exist once we start seeing the college football playoff poll. I mean, I also thought the move from Alabama out of the top 10 to 12th based on a missed field goal was pretty dramatic as well. But you know, you've heard me say before, maybe you haven't, that I think they get in there, they have agendas. Since they're not transparent, it's hard to take anything out of what they tell us. We had Hancock on yesterday, and he has his talking points like they all do because they're a collective body. But until they let us in that room or let us know what they did, then it will remain an extreme mystery. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate the call. More to come here on the program, 855-242-7285. A number of guests will join us. We'll start talking about let's get right to it. What's Georgia's path, if they have one, to winning this game?
Well, you know, where there's a will, there's always a way, Paul, and I think there is an opportunity out there for Georgia to win this game, and you know, it's not a small order. I mean, you're going to have to find a way to slow down this offensive juggernaut that LSU is bringing into Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and very few teams have done that. Some have had some success at it. But I would think Georgia's defense, based on what we've seen to this point, is probably as well suited for that as anybody. And then, you know, they got to find a way to scrounge some points, scrounge out some yards, some first downs, and really in particular some third downs in this game. Those have been missing a little bit these last several weeks of the season. But, you know, Paul, it's, you know, crazy things happen in this game in particular, and not many people are giving Georgia a shot. But, you know, I'm over here now in Athens. I've been here all week. And it's a very confident bunch that's really enjoying. Well,
listen. I mean, let's. I mean, I get all, Chip. I get all the cliches. I mean, I follow sports like you do, but I still don't understand the confidence based on the deficiencies on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, but it's because there's three phases to football. You say you understand the game, and there's more to it than.
Well, yeah, but you have to score to win.
You do have to score to win, and you know, honestly, really, I think Georgia is better suited than anybody else LSU has faced to this point to defend what they're doing.
Okay.
Now, can they do it? I don't know. But here's what I really like about Georgia. Number one, it's the secondary, and it's not just the 4 or 5 players out there. It's the way that Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning substitute in and out, based on the situation, and they have a lot of answers in those substitution patterns. The other side of it is Kirby Smart. Now, look, you and I probably agree. There's a lot of things I don't like that Kirby Smart has done in big games. But the one thing you can't say about Kirby Smart's teams in big games, and you going all the way back to when he was coaching the defense for Nick Saban, man, his teams come in prepared. And, you can say what you can about psychology and what Georgia did with the leads that they've had in a couple of these games. But they did, gain those leads, and they got them because of some great strategy, some great game plans. And I think they're going to have an exceptional game plan for this one as well.
Okay. Listen, Chip, it would be incredible to see a game that goes deep, especially because there is somewhat of a disconnect, and I want you to talk about it, between the reality of the situation, the betting line, versus what the average fan thinks. And outside of maybe that zip code, I don't really know many people who think Georgia can beat LSU.
Well, the line is interesting. It started off at 3.5 or 4, and it's grown, kind of continuously since then. And I get that. I mean, most of the people, when the line opened, even now that it's at a full touchdown, they still hear people saying, is that all? But, there's just so many more factors. I mean, I think Georgia has a lot of intangibles going for them. I spoke about the defensive side of things, but I also think, Georgia's got some offensive answers as well. And one thing Georgia does well is run in zone blocking schemes inside. That's not a strength for LSU's defense. LSU has several weaknesses. They're good against the run, but there's certain kind of runs they haven't been great against. And I sat here, Paul. You can read it on AJC.com. You can read it in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution printed newspaper. I was surprised by this myself. I didn't start this week looking at this game this way, but I sat there and broke down every single position, every single matchup, objectively talking to reporters from LSU, talking to fellow reporters on Georgia, just edge or even. LSU has the edge, Georgia has the edge or even. And Georgia had more advantages, just one more based on my quantification of it. But, I mean, this is not the lopsided game I think that the national conscious would have you think it's going to be.
Okay, let's talk about those deficiencies, and especially those that are deficient that maybe could turn to a positive. What's the deal with Swift? How badly is he banged up?
Yeah, now that's just a total unknown at this point, and I'm not sure what to make of it. You go in the game and he comes out of the game with his left shoulder wrapped up, and then I go back and look at the replays, and he never got his left shoulder hit on that play in particular. But, supposedly he's been dealing with a shoulder contusion for most of the season. And, the question for me, you were around, Paul, when Kerryon Johnson came into the game in 2017 with kind of a similar story. Kirby says it's a different type of injury, but suffice it to say a running back needs healthy shoulders when he plays because he's going to get hit on a lot. So that's a big question mark that we're going to have to watch on Saturday. The other thing is obviously Fromm and what's going on with the offense. Obviously, the completion numbers are down. I'm working on a story today that you can read tomorrow, talking to a lot of experts about that. And, you got a very similar situation with Jake Fromm to Tom Brady trying to replace a lot of production, but he's being very careful and efficient with the football beyond completion percentage. Nobody's taken the ball away from Georgia ever since they lost to South Carolina, other than a couple of sloppiness not in the SEC game, a couple of sloppy turnovers against Georgia Tech. But otherwise, they're taking very good care of the football. That'll be really important Saturday.
One other thing, and you can't really talk to people and analyze this with numbers, but it's what's at stake. And, Chip, we know what's at stake for Georgia. I wonder, though, about LSU. They've accomplished so much already. They know they're going, and I know what Ed Orgeron says, but come on. These players are very smart. They can read the They can read the tea leaves. They know they're going to the playoff whether they win or lose this game. What role do you think that could play in what we see Saturday?
Well, that's a super X factor as well, I think, because you don't – yeah, this might mean that LSU plays really loose, got nothing to lose, and they relax. Or it may be they're too relaxed. They're sloppy. They're not worried about it. Georgia definitely has a back against the wall mentality. They've kind of had that. They've had to have that ever since the South Carolina game, and that's where the Georgia players are kind of were reveling in the idea of being an underdog. You got to think all season Georgia hasn't been an underdog in any game. If you're going by Las Vegas lines, this is the first time they've gotten to play that role. Really, most of the last 2 seasons, so they're loving that part of it. So back against the wall mentality versus being loosey goosey. But both of them will have a factor. The other thing is just LSU hadn't been here. And that's not that big of a deal. I don't think that LSU's played big games everywhere, all year, all the time, and in the history of the school. But it's different. Mercedes-Benz is different. It's a different place. It's a different environment. Georgia's got close to 50 players that have been in that environment before. LSU has 0. So is that a factor? I don't know. Orgeron's never coached in there or a game like this. Is that a factor? I don't know, but we'll find out.
Chip, thank you very much. As always, we will see you this weekend. Great to have you on.
Welcome to Atlanta. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Why does everybody think we're in Atlanta? Anyway, we're still here in studio. We'll be in Atlanta tomorrow. More of your phone calls when we come back.
Obviously, Alabama lost on Saturday, and one of the things that we did when Bama lost against LSU was like, man, once Monday rolls around, why don't we all just kind of listen to Paul's show together? And we opened up the Slack room. We called it Paul, and we had some 300 people. But that's what we do. And one of the things that I love so much about Banner Society, I love our team, I love our group, and I love that we basically are trying an endeavor that wants to reach and connect college football fans, because all of us love the sport collectively, whether we like Florida or Utah or Oregon or whatever.
By the way, you're not allowed to mention Utah on this show.
Oh, okay. I was mistaken. But no matter where we live, we all love the sport, and that's what brings us together. And so in the different platforms that we produce content, that's what we try to do.
What is it? Is there, or what is your target demo?
Everybody. You like college football? Come through.
Doesn't matter.
You've never heard about college football? We got a podcast for you that's really, really silly, Shut Down Fullcast, that's going to treat the sport for really what it is, which is just absolute ridiculous. I mean, it's fun. It's meaningful. It's one of the most important things that I do out of 3 months out of the year. But some of the stuff a player catches a touchdown against his biggest rival and pantomimes urinating on the field. I mean, that's hilarious. So we've got a podcast that is going to treat that for what it is. It's not the end of the world. It's not a violation of the Geneva Convention. It is an incredibly farcical thing that happened in one state's biggest day of the year.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not trying to sound like your dad here. It's so funny that it cost a guy his job.
Yeah, it's just, and that somebody asked me a couple days ago, well, would it be right to say Matt Luke lost his job because one of his former wide receivers peed on the field? And I was like, it's not that simple, but that is the quickest on-ramp to explain that situation, which is, that's college football. That's college football.
Yeah, no, and if that had not happened and Ole Miss had made the extra point and won the game in overtime,
maybe Joe Moorhead loses his job.
I mean, I am now convinced that there is nothing like the Egg Bowl rivalry.
Nothing like it. I mean, the Iron Bowl is different because the Iron Bowl always has national implications. Yeah. It always matters. But and I don't say this to condescend to Mississippi. It's all Mississippi. It matters the most for that state. And that's what I think. Like my co-host Godfrey went to Ole Miss, and he calls it crabs in a bucket. And he's like, it's crabs in a bucket, and one crab's goal is to always take the other crab down, and that's just what the rivalry is.
And we are back on the program, and there is big news happening in Tuscaloosa right now. Tua Tagovailoa is speaking to the media as we speak.
I've had conversations with Coach Saban, and kind of what I said the last time. on TV with Kirk Herbstreit, is pretty much the same thing Coach Saban told me. And, those are the two things that, I felt I needed to take into consideration. And it's something I still need to sit down and talk to about with my family. Haven't really had that opportunity because of the rehab that I need to go through, and then I'm still trying to finish up my school here. So.
First off, did you have a timetable for when you want to make that decision?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't. I've said this before. The decision could be tomorrow. Decision could be on the 20th, when the deadline is. So anytime between that, I'll end up making my decision.
And secondly, when the injury occurred, did you realize how serious it was in the moment? Did you realize how badly hurt you were?
Yeah, I didn't. I couldn't comprehend anything. I had a concussion at the same time while I was on the ground, and I think my body was just in such a traumatic state that, I couldn't really feel too much. I just know that, well, from what I can remember, with every little movement I made, on the ground, I was hurting. That's all I could remember.
Two questions for you, too. First of all, whether it's here or NFL, is your plan and expectation to play football this coming season, next season?
Yeah, I want to play. Anytime. I've played hurt many times. Over the course of 2 years that I've been the starter here. But I'd like to say this is just a totally different situation. This is a unique situation. This isn't something that I can rush. If I want to play to my full potential, I know that I can't just come back and play on it as if it were my ankle. So it's just something that I need to take into consideration. And I think a lot of what you just said, me wanting to play, I think a lot of that has to go into my decision making too, as to whether I stay or leave.
And the second question, so I know you talked the other day just about the pros and cons of staying in school and potentially making the move to the NFL also. Let's say once you get your feedback, the feedback's that it looks like you're still a top 10, top 15 draft pick. If that's the case, like top 10, top 15, worst case scenario, would it be tough to pass that up?
Yeah, I think that'd be tough to pass up. But I think there's a lot more to it than that in some aspects. I don't want to say too much, because I guess what me and my family talk about. They kind of want it to be just with me and my family, so that's all I can say about that.
You mentioned just kind of the uncertainty, even with your condition right now. The doctors, they don't know yet whether or not what your future holds. How difficult is that to kind of go through, just not even knowing right now?
Well, I firmly believe in the Bible, and the Bible says you walk by faith and not by sight. So, that's pretty much what I'm holding on to. Just trust in the good Lord, and He's the best doctor for me and what I believe in, and I believe that, all these guys that I'm surrounded with, are athletic trainers. You got Jeff Allen, Ryan Vicknair, Jeremy Gazelle, all these other guys that, are just very, very helpful and who have been helpful to, with me and my rehabbing process throughout the years. And, I feel this is something that is bigger than me, and I feel like I'll still be able to come back, 100% and be able to play to the capability that I know I'm able to play at.
John, did you have one? Here. Questions? Mike over there.
Given your experience with this injury, but also knowing your competitive spirit to want to be out there, what would be your message to any of your teammates who are thinking of not playing in a bowl game and trying to stay healthy, if there are any of those?
Well, for me, I think it's different. With a lot of the guys that are, draft eligible, you can't really tell them, what they should or shouldn't do. I think the best thing for me as a teammate, would be to support them in whatever the decision they decide to make. It's their choice, and they've worked hard enough, and they've worked, long enough to get to where they're at, in their life. And if they decide to not play, to sit out, I think that's a decision they need to sit down with coach and make. And I think the best
Well,
thing
certainly
that
not a lot of news there. Tua said he has not made a decision, so we thought there would be a little bit of news, but it was good to see him, and he looks pretty happy. We'll take a short break. More to come.
24 out of 25 balls we caught in one game. That's unbelievable. It gives our players confidence, it gives the fans confidence, it gives our whole team confidence, and gives the head coach a lot of confidence.
Okay, we're back, and again, the Tua press conference was interesting. Talked about some of the different people with whom he has consulted, including Bo Jackson, but he said no specific announcement on when he would make a determination about coming back or going pro. Let's get to the calls and talk to Bear, who's in Alabama. That seems to make sense. Bear?
Hello.
Hey, Bear.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
I'm well, Bear. Thank you very much.
I can't believe I'm talking to you, man. This is great.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Man, I love your show. I saw them giving you a protest in Utah. I don't understand that.
Well, if you've ever been to Utah, which I haven't, I doubt there's very much to do. So I'm happy they found some entertainment.
Yeah, I worked at Chevron in Salt Lake City, Utah. The year Urban Meyer beat Alabama in the bowl game.
Well, that's right. He
which was
coached out
shocking.
there. Yeah. By the way, it wasn't Urban. It was Kyle Willingham.
You're right.
Whittingham.
Urban went to Florida.
Whittingham. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, Paul, I just call and tell you you're doing a good job, man. The SEC's got this locked up regardless. Georgia or LSU is going to win it.
Well, thank you very much. And I just remember. I mean, Whittingham has been there a long time. He was the coach who beat Saban in 2008. He's got a good resume. I mean, Whittingham. He's been there. He was an assistant under Urban. He's been the head coach since 2006. That's a long time to be at someplace. He's had some good records. I mean, a couple of 10 and 11 win seasons, including this year. Good for him. Russ is up next. Hey, Russ, nice of you to call. No Russ. How about Bobby in Georgia? Bobby, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Good to talk to you again, Paul.
Thank you.
And but to get back to Alabama, I believe a lot of the problem has come. You've mentioned it in some of the shows you've been on, but when Kirby left, there was consistency there with Kirby and Nick, and then as he left, then the fill-in that Jeremy came in, but he had Kirby's defense guys, and then after he left, of course, it's kind of fallen off. And
yeah, but don't remember what else happened. Kirby had Mel Tucker as well, and that was a dynamic combination.
Yes, sir. And one thing I've learned, I've coached high school football too. You got to have consistency, and the turnover has caught up with them, and I believe that's where a lot of it has. And
I think you're right.
Kirby knows Alabama. I mean, 9 years there, you're going to learn a lot from Nick, and he's learned a lot. So, it'll be something. I believe Alabama will come back, but I just think that they talk about the eye test in that group, and you're going to tell me that team lost by 2 games by 9 points, and they're going to fall under some of these other teams.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Bobby, you're a coach. You could get 100 high school coaches and put them in a room and watch game film, and Alabama would still grade out among the top 5 or 6 in the country.
No doubt. And it's but you got to have consistency. I mean, even in high school, we might have had 5 or 7 coaches, and you had 45, 50 players. But, in college, you got probably 20. And, if you don't have the consistency to help, because one coach can't do it. Nick's a great coach, but one coach cannot do it. I mean, there's no way you can coach up all those guys. You got to have good people under, just like Dabo. When Dabo loses his guys, you will see a different team. And, that's why I think, if you remember, I told you about 5 weeks ago that I didn't think Alabama and Clemson would be in the finals. But I didn't know that Tua was going to get hurt neither. But I honestly believe that, even with Clemson getting in, I think the first team that plays them, they're really going to be a difference on that. And I think they won't make it to the finals neither.
Thank you very much. Bobby, really nice of you to call. Always great to hear from coaches. How about Jim in Tennessee? Hello, Jim.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
I'm well. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm the same guy that called in about the 80 straight Egg Bowls for the gentleman from Winona, Mississippi.
Oh, sure.
But, anyway, I just want to note that not only was my dad wrong in his prediction about how that ball game would fall out, but you were wrong too.
Oh no! Listen, I think I was wrong about everything that I predicted last week.
That's okay. We've all been there. But I'm not going to rub your nose in it. And I didn't rub my nose in my dad's. But one thing I do want to point out that I think some people have kind of pinpointed is I think Matt Luke wanted to be his player's friend and not be the head coach. And I look back, you have to have both. You can't be their best friend. I played under one of the toughest guys on the planet in John David Crow
at
Louisiana Monroe.
I know John.
And he was not your friend.
No. Well, you know one thing that bothered me, Jim? When I heard what Luke said about Elijah after the game, it bothered me in the sense that I know why he said it, but that wasn't the right message to send out at that time.
Right. And here's another good example of somebody that was definitely a strict disciplinarian but couldn't win on a consistent basis, and that's Sylvester Croom.
Oh, absolutely.
Sylvester Croom had the program torqued down after it had kind of run off the tracks, but he couldn't win consistently. So I guess that's a long way of asking my question. In your opinion, who does Ole Miss go after that can fill both of those needs? The need for somebody that can get control of the program again and win consistently.
Jim, before I answer, let's talk about some of the names that are being mentioned. Let's take Norvell out of the mix. I don't think he's going there. I think he's going to FSU. So where does that leave Ole Miss? I mean, I've heard names. You've heard names. I've heard Napier's name. I've heard Willie Fritz. Lane Kiffin has come into this thing late. Now, whether there's enough momentum, I don't know, but I have heard some of the things that Kiffin might bring to the table, and they would be very impressive. What have you heard?
I've heard just about every name out there. Of course, being here in Memphis, Norvell, his name is bandied around for just about every opening there is. If he goes anywhere, I think you're right in that Florida State would probably be a good fit for him. Whether he goes or not, I really don't know. I don't know why he would leave, but here again, I'm kind of a Memphis fan too. So
sure.
I don't know who fills those shoes. I've heard Justin Fuente, who was also here in Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, I have to wonder about Fuente and Virginia Tech. To me, it seems like a shaky marriage.
It does to me as well. I was always kind of skeptical of that when he left. But he's been fairly successful. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm not one of those guys that truly hates Ole Miss, or I grew up a Bulldog. My dad played ball there and all that. But they're a fine institution.
Let me ask you about Moorhead. I saw the other day where the attendance had been down more than it had in recent memory. Winning that game is important, but what is his stature a week after the Egg Bowl? What are fans saying about him right now?
Well, you had those naysayers that are kind of coming back towards the middle now and saying, okay, we'll give him another chance. Give him another chance. It's amazing how short memories are.
Oh, sure.
people forget that two years before Dan Mullen left, he was 5-7 and lost to South Alabama. So I think you got to, and that's been my stance all along, Paul. You got to give the guy a chance. And if they'd have let him go after this year, I don't think that would have been fair to him. Let's see what this year. The Mississippi State fan base, they want to win on a consistent basis. That's what they want to do. They want to be competitive with Alabama and LSU and Auburn and Ole Miss and everybody in the West. And you're not going to win all those games all the time, even if you are competitive. But at least be competitive and don't lose a game to, even though Tennessee came on late in the year. Early on, they weren't a very good football team.
They were terrible.
Yeah, and you lose those kind of games that you ought to win. They should have won the Kansas State game. So there's two games right there that could have stopped a lot of the naysayers.
Nice of you to call, Jim. Thank you very, very much. Let's continue with more calls at 855-242-7285. And Jerry is in North Carolina. Hello, Jerry.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Last time I talked to you was in July of 2013 when I was living in Alabama, but I still listen to you. The same every day.
Thank you very much.
I just had a quick question. When Uncle Mac Brown and nephew Dabo Swinney, when he got the job at Clemson, Dabo went out to see Uncle Mac and stayed about 3 weeks, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, to learn a system, and he's done very well. But in the game they played this year in Chapel Hill, regular time ended in a tie. And so everybody calls their team out on the sideline and huddles up and goes 4-4-4. Well, Clemson really didn't even come off the field. Their team didn't come off the field when he decided that he was going to go for a 2-point conversion rather than, a tie. They just stayed on the field, didn't move. So when Carolina came back on the field and ran that play, it didn't go anywhere. They lost 2 yards, and they lost the game. So that tells me, or makes me wonder, Dabo, being a Christian and a gentleman, did he and Mac come up with that plan? Because Clemson didn't move a player at all when Carolina lined up to go for the 2-point conversion. And so it sounds like to me if that had happened, if Carolina had won that game, then the ACC wouldn't have had anybody in the playoffs. And I just wonder what you feel.
Listen, I know both coaches fairly well, and it's hard for me to believe that there was any collusion. Mac Brown's a competitor. I truly believe he wanted to win that game, but I don't think Mac Brown's overly concerned about the ACC standing. He's concerned about the University of North Carolina. Great to have you on. We must go to a break. Glenn Gilbo from Louisiana will join us to give his unique take on the SEC. Belk winning with style. Georgia versus LSU in the SEC championship game. Yep, they've met a few times before. 11, 05, 03, and of course this year. This is the second most often matchup. Do you know what the first is? Alabama and Florida. And we welcome you back. We talked to Chip Towers earlier, and he felt like Georgia had a chance. We weren't exactly sure the path, but that's what we'll show up for the game for. What about LSU? Coming off of its most dominating win of the year, it seemed like LSU thought last week was the SEC championship game. Glenn Gilbo covers the Tigers, and Glenn, always great to have you on. So we know LSU is in, and we know Ed Ogeron says that doesn't mean anything. But what do you think? You covered this team. You know their psyche. Shouldn't be hard to get up for the SEC championship game, except that they're already in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely be up for it because they haven't been in this game in so long, and there's a lot of kids from Louisiana on the team, and they were 13, 12 years old the last time LSU was in this championship game in 2011. So guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Rashard Lawrence, I think it means a lot to them just in itself, the SEC championship game. So I don't think that's going to be a problem.
What if LSU doesn't win? What do you think the problem? Where do you think the problems will come from?
Well, if they don't win, they'll still make the playoffs. But I think, if they don't win, I think it's going to be because of Georgia's defense. I think this is the best defense LSU will play this season, even after this game. Kirby rotates 30 people. He's on defense. He's got rush specialists. He's got the best group of cornerbacks and DBs that LSU is going to play. And, Burrow's never really been pressured that much this season. They run a quick pass offense. So and Jamar Chase has never been covered really this season. So if he can be covered by one of the Georgia cornerbacks, and if they can get some pressure on Burrow, it might be a different game than LSU's used to.
Glenn, we thought there was a chance LSU was trending toward a special season. You told us back in the spring you thought LSU could still make the playoff, even losing to Alabama. Well, so much has changed since then. I am interested in this, though. With LSU's success, and I know there will always be changes with Burrow leaving, what's the feeling inside that program, the momentum, the trajectory now that not only has LSU beaten Alabama, but so has Auburn?
Yeah. Well, I think the main feeling for LSU people is they got to keep Joe Brady, the pass game coordinator. That's number one goal there is keeping him. Joe Burrow is leaving, and I think Joe Burrow definitely helped make Joe Brady a superstar pass game coordinator as Brady helped Burrow become a superstar quarterback. But, the litmus test will be how Joe Brady does with Miles Brennan or one of the freshmen next year. But they definitely have to keep him, or, this could be like a one-year wonder. But they do have better quarterbacks coming in down the road, and if they can keep Joe Brady for a couple of years, they had the number 3 class last year. They have the number 1 class right now. This program could be good for quite a few years.
Let's take that from two angles. What does Joe Brady make now, and what could he end up making?
He makes only $400,000 right now.
That's terrible.
And he possibly could become the offensive coordinator for LSU next year, and they could move Steve Ensminger back to maybe a quarterback coach or a tight ends coach, which he was before, and which he was kind of happy doing, and bump Brady up to 1.5 or $2 million or something like that to keep him, because there's already rumors that people are looking for him or trying to hire him, like Texas, and if they keep winning and go to the national championship and win it, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people trying to get Joe Brady. Maybe even some mid-major colleges trying to hire him as a head coach, which I don't think he's ready for yet. But you never know. He may even he's got some NFL experience. He could get.
By the way, I don't mean to be is Joe Brady old enough to drive yet?
He's 30. He just makes 30.
Okay.
Which he's only a few years older than some of LSU players. Zach Von Rosenberg is almost 30. LSU's punter. He played professional baseball for a while.
That's amazing.
Joe Brady is a kid.
Is it your best guess that given the money, which is a lot, he will stay?
I think he'll stay. I mean, he has no ties to LSU at all. He's from Florida. He played football on the East Coast. But I think he feels indebted to LSU for them giving him this chance, as well he should. I mean, he was a GA with the Saints, kind of a third-level assistant. And Ed Orgeron gave him the offense, So I'm sure he's very appreciative of that. And he's got to give LSU at least one more year, I would hope, unless somebody goes crazy and offers him some kind of head coaching job. And we have seen that happen. I mean, look, Freddie Kitchens got that job with Cleveland. I mean, I could see the same thing happening to Brady on the college.
Come on,
level,
there's no way
somebody-
Brady could be as terrible a coach as Freddie Kitchens.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that hopefully people will see those mistakes that maybe some coaches got jobs too early and they can hurt themselves. Lane Kiffin got a head coaching job too early with the Raiders.
He did.
I don't think Joe is quite ready yet for that.
In terms of Orgeron, it just seems like he's still the same guy. Is that accurate?
Oh, no question. Ed has the soul of an assistant coach. Assistant coaches tend to be more well-liked by the players and by the media sometimes. And he's been a great head coach, a great CEO head coach, but he's still kind of like an assistant, I think. He's just doing a phenomenal job. One of the best things he's done is the hires he's made, like Joe Brady, like Greg McMahon, the coach of the special teams, also a former Saint coach. His offensive line coach, his secondary coach have been great hires, and he's recruited extremely well, which everybody knew about, but he's also up in D.C. and California, areas that LSU hasn't been in, and he's really doing well there.
Glenn, assuming everything works out well with a win, where are you on this great debate, and how important do you think it is? Seems like it's pretty important in terms of finishing first or second.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it makes that much of a difference. The fourth team. If you finish number one, you get to play the 4 seed. But I don't know if playing the 4 seed is that much easier than, say, playing Clemson if they're the 3 seed, which LSU would play if they're the 2 seed. So, I don't know, man. Do you want to go against Jalen Hurts if he's the number 4 team with Oklahoma? LSU's defense has had issues this year with passing quarterbacks and running quarterbacks, and he does both. So I don't really know, and it's so close as far as LSU and Ohio State. I could see voting either of them number 1. I think Ohio State probably is a molecule better than LSU, but if LSU beats Georgia Saturday, I got to believe they should go up to number 1.
I think it could be an advantage depending on how this shakes out. But right now, that is not the concern of the LSU Tigers. Glenn, we'll see you in Atlanta. Thanks, as always, for coming by.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Glenn Guilbeau? Matter of fact, comments there about Joe Brady. Very interesting analysis there. We're heading to a break. We have a couple more guests to come, including Bruce Feldman. He did a piece on the rise of course, Joe Burrow. A lot of Joes down.
Alabama's really, as you know, played 2 top 25 teams, lost to both of them. Number 2, and where's Auburn now? 11. So good losses, but and not a lot of wins over P5 teams with winning records. Defense strong. As I observed and listened to the discussion, the committee was determined to let the head-to-head mean something in that one with Auburn, and then just look who they failed below. I think people tend to look at drops without saying, "Wait a minute, what did the other teams do that they passed?" And I'm just trying to think of who lost that was who else lost that was in their mix. That they may have been the only one in their group that in their ranking that went down. Although I need to be careful about saying that because I don't know.
That's
sure.
okay. No, I just
Anyway,
wanted a snapshot, but.
Yeah, and you have to think about what did the other teams do. It's not just what did Team A do, but what did everybody else do? Actually, the committee will watch all the games together this weekend. That's sort of the tradition and what we do. The schedule is we will have a meeting Friday late afternoon, go through some administrative things, and just talk about anybody have any feedback on where we were last week. And then adjourn and watch the Pac-12 game. Come back Saturday morning, analyze what we saw in the Pac-12 game. Can't do any rankings because we need the other game results. And so we'll just gather for the rest of the day together watching football. And we have two of our members whose teams are playing, Oklahoma and Oregon, and they'll be in there right there with us in the room watching games.
There's a perception out there that the TV networks pick the teams for better ratings. I know you've heard that one before.
Oh my goodness, I've been doing this. Let me see, 31 years, 16 years in college basketball with the Final Four or with the NCAA tournament, and now this is my 15th year with college football. Every year, Paul, I hear someone say that. All of those 31 years, and it is absolutely not true. TV wouldn't want to be a part of it, and even if they did, we would say, no, you don't have anything to do with this. Get out of here. No, absolutely not.
Welcome back. We're back on the show, and glad you are with us. Yeah, somebody mentioned the other day how few Alabama fans have shown up to the party since the beating the loss. It wasn't a beating, 3 points, was it? Larry is up next.
I like the way you say something, but don't say it, really. The beating.
How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing fine, man. I was comatose. You know, I blistered an 18-pack like you wouldn't believe.
Okay, so let's just get facts for facts. Game ends at about 6:30 local time. How did you react?
When the game ended?
Yeah, missed field goal.
I started to go to the Coosa River Bridge and jump off.
You were that distraught? Seriously?
Yeah, hell, that's Auburn, Jack. You kidding me? I mean, the only good thing I want to listen now, man, because I got mute on my TV. But I do listen to him some. I'm not going to lie. He deserves it. They won. We lost.
Okay, so you didn't kill yourself, thank goodness.
Yeah,
so,
felt like it. I was so depressed for like 3 days.
So that night, you had already had how many beers?
Well, I went back and I had 22 what I ended up drinking.
You drank 22 Bud Lights on Saturday?
Tall boys, 4 of them.
Tall boys?
Yes.
Well, how tall is a tall boy? I mean, how many ounces?
I don't know. I got one now. I can't see it. But
so a normal. If I walk into a bar and say, "Give me a Bud Light, a can of Bud," that's 12 ounces, right? Yeah. Bottle of beer. You essentially drank how many? How many did you say?
24 ounces. I drank 4 tall boys. Is 48 ounces.
48 ounces.
And I drank an 18-pack of tall boys. I don't know how many of them was. So
hold
48
on. You had
plus 18.
You had 22. So essentially, you had 44 beers.
Yeah. No, not 44. 18, 24.
No, Larry, you don't understand. Bottle of Bud Light's 12 ounces, right? You drank a 24, so he had. Yeah. Am I correct? You essentially had 40.
Man.
You basically walked into a bar and said, "I'll have 42 Bud Lights."
Yeah. Put them in the box. No, I got to be watching Auburn, Alabama to do that. I go beyond human strength. I go past.
Okay, Larry. So you wake up. You wake up what time the next morning?
Man, please. God, I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to listen to nobody. I didn't want to hear this.
What's the one thing, Larry, you wanted to hear less? I mean, was it an Auburn fan? Was it this show? What was it?
Well, my most depressing moment was you on Stephen A. Smith dogging Trump. I meant he's the same.
That was on Sean Hannity. I was dogging Trump.
So dogging Saban. And
so you heard me. You saw me not dogging Saban, but just being objective about where he is right now.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I hope you don't get riled up, but I want to say just this. I'm not going to go back about all this happened. No, I'm not doing that. I don't want to keep reliving that crap. What I'm saying is if you took one of the top 4 teams and took their quarterback out, you name him, Jake Fromm.
Okay.
But wait a minute, and then you took 4.
Oh, Larry, come on! Don't give me. Ohio State won the national championship 5 years ago and beat your team with a third-string quarterback.
Well, I know you start that.
Florida
but what I'm
played
trying to-
all year. Florida got down to 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Kentucky played all year with.
Well, I'm just saying it's hard to do.
You're not the only
Finebaum.
team that lost a
and
quarterback.
I'm talking about these top
And by the way, your backup quarterback is out in Oklahoma right now.
pretty damn good. Yeah, he throwed a couple of picks, but don't sit there and tell me
Hey,
that
Larry,
you can
I got
take a
news for you,
top 4
Jack.
team
I got news
that
for you.
lose their
You didn't lose the
quarterback.
Auburn game because of your backup quarterback. Mac Jones played pretty well.
The offensive line done good. They had
You
5 and
lost
3
the
on
game
their
because
ass
your
most of the
defense
day.
your
We had-
defense stunk.
Yeah,
Okay.
just like the field goal. I mean,
Nah,
just like
field
that
goal didn't
field
cost
goal
you
at the
anything.
half.
Your
Let me
de-
tell you, I'm not.
Your
let me
defense
finish.
let you down,
They
Larry.
let boy, that
Auburn
running
couldn't
back,
score against anybody, and they put 48 on you.
Hey, check this out. We give them 14.
Okay.
They put 34.
Okay,
Why
they-
don't you get it in perspective?
Well, they put
Jack?
34
I
on you,
knew
which
you'd
is still
start.
not, which
I
is still
knew.
too many.
That's no problem. I doubt if we get through a
Larry,
minute of this
repeat after me.
conversation.
Repeat after me, Larry. Okay.
I'm not. You
We are the
crazy?
number 12 football team in America.
Hey, I will
We
say
are.
this. I'm gonna
We are
repeat it.
number 12.
Hold on.
We are nowhere near. You can't alibi this or that.
I'm just going to say that
Auburn is
that
ranked
what you
ahead of
said.
you, Larry.
Let me repeat
Or
what you
Utah.
said.
Hey, Larry, Utah
okay,
is ranked ahead
I'm
of
going
you.
to repeat after you. Alabama is number 12 in the country, but they'll always be number 1 in my heart, Jack.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah,
damn
you also had open
football
heart
team and
surgery
my
recently,
coach.
Larry.
So you take that and you watch us next year, son. Roll damn tide.
That was great, Larry. Mike is up next. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul. I am actually drinking my second Bud Light of the day, but that's only going to amount to about 24 ounces, and I'm not through with it
Yeah,
yet.
I'm not sure that's really a 25. Isn't a tall boy 16 ounces?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's definitely 16 ounces. 2 quick things, Paul, and thanks
Not
for
that I
taking my
know.
call. The first one, because I've been trying to get this in all week, but I've come up against breaks and everything else. But anyway, you had a segment on last Friday with Brandon Marcello, a gentleman from The Athletic, and another man from, I think, Auburn Beat at the end of the show. And I just want to say that was one of the most excellent
Thank you.
segments
I
that
thought it was great.
I've ever seen in your show. Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, if you just love football, it was really, and I'm not saying this in a disparaging way about the segments that I see up at ESPN that you do up in New York, but it was just so nice to hear intelligent conversation, diverse opinions, and sapient, intelligent information, being, talked about. I mean, it was just a very satisfying segment. And anyway, Brandon Marcello, he's great.
Listen, I
Everybody-
totally agree. And to me, I really enjoyed talking to callers, but I think my favorite part of the show is when I get guys like that in here and we just kick it around.
Well, it was really good. I mean, it really came off well. It did. Moving on to the game, just real quickly. As a dog fan, I'm sitting here and I'm nervous. I feel like there's a tidal wave coming at us. At the same time, as we talked about, we got a puncher's chance, and I do feel like we will punch. So, we'll see what happens. The nice thing is, for the SEC championship, for the second year in a row, we do have the best 2 teams in there. And it should be an excellent game, and I wish you a safe trip. Hope everybody enjoys it.
Thank you very much. We're up against a break. More to come on the program, including your phone calls. And we sent somebody out to Larry's house just to check on him. We're back. Hope you will be as well.
Motivating myself, just getting up and not having nobody tell me what I need to do. I was just thinking I could be doing something getting better right now, so I'll just get up and just go work out for like an hour or 2 and just clear my mind off anything.
This offseason, Georgia running back DeAndre Swift routinely worked out by himself after midnight at the indoor practice facility. No coaches, no trainers, just Swift and his drive to get better.
There's no distractions. Really on your own. Whatever you need to work at, you can really focus on drills, speed, just get my condition right. You can always get better at stuff, so just little things like that, I could elevate my game.
That shows the love that he has for this game, and not only the game, but this team. You know, the fact that he's willing to come and sacrifice his body, outside of just the structured work that we get every week in order to make himself as good as he can for us.
It's a grind, especially at this level. Workouts, the school, being a student athlete, waking up in the morning, not going to bed until 12 or something at night. Just, you got to be self-motivated. You don't need to have somebody wake you up in the morning and tell you to go here and go there.
While Swift's late-night workouts started as a solo endeavor, they became a group activity as younger running backs Zamir White and James Cook joined into the after-hours grind.
The example was set for me when I was young. So now I'm in that older guy, I'm in that role. I believe it's a good idea just to set the example, be that big brother figure for them, do everything right on and off the field so they can see how it's supposed to be done.
DeAndre has a lot of the same characteristics as Fromm. Both of them have the desire to win and succeed more than they have the desire to sleep. Seeing them do what they do is going to give these young guys confidence to go in there and do the same exact thing, so hopefully they can get to that level one day.
Swift got room over midfield, 45-40, near sideline, touchdown! Swift done it again!
I just love the process. I love the grind. It's things that people don't get to see. They just see the output that we get to do on Saturdays, and they don't see the hard work and the dedication that it really takes to.
Chicago, who is up next?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Jimmy.
It was interesting to hear your conversations with Chip and Glenn. In regard to what Georgia needs to do to win the game, obviously it's to, execute a ball control offensive plan. But in my mind, unless I'm mistaken, Tajer is not even going to be able to play if they made the playoffs. And so he's not available. And when they didn't have him in the other game he missed, it was against South Carolina. And they're going to be without Pickens for the first half.
Well, that is turning out to be really stupid, what he did.
It was just ridiculous as far ahead as they were. And, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Alabama's playoff game against Washington when in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game, Washington players were trying to instigate fights so that Alabama guys would, get involved and maybe get thrown out of the game and have to miss a half of the championship game. But he fell for it. It's a really unfortunate thing. And to me, they are the two elite receivers they have. And if they have no passing game, and on top of that, they don't even know the status, according to Chip, of Swift.
No, listen, that's why I kept pushing him, and I think we both agree with Georgia's defense, but I really worry about their production.
Yeah, and on top of that, against they as good as they've been, they hadn't seen an offense like LSU.
No.
And if they're going to have to be out on the field a significant amount of time in the ball game, that's going to be a big problem also.
Listen, I think, and everyone's saying the opposite, but I think LSU would have to just come out with their heads elsewhere for that game to get off to a good start for Georgia.
And there's no reason whatsoever they would come out not being focused. They know if they win this game, I don't think there's any doubt they're going to leapfrog Ohio State just because of their resume, the number of quality teams they've beaten. I don't disagree that Ohio State, has been probably the more complete team all year, but they can't match the number of quality victories.
Well, nobody would.
Up.
I mean, listen, nobody's going to have a win over the number 4 team in the country.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
And it's a big deal for LSU if they win the ball game to play in the exact location where they just won the SEC championship. And then the number 4 team. They are such a big drop off from the top 3 teams to the number 4 team. I mean, to me, it's glaring. And it's a really big deal to be the number 1 team. I couldn't agree more. So LSU's got all the incentive in the world, and there's also, being national champions obviously is an incredible accomplishment, but there's just something extra about being an undefeated national champion, I think. You really have a special place, in your school's history. And I think they're really motivated. And again, I just think their scheme's going to be really difficult to deal with. And I think Edwards-Helaire has really turned out to be a huge star in the final month of the season, and he's going to be a handful to deal with. So, man, I just really like LSU in this game. They would have to play really poorly not to win the game, because I just think, and I'm a big Fromm fan, but he's just not playing with a full load of weapons that they would normally have.
Great to have you on. Thank you, Jimmy. Always appreciate it. Let's go to Linda, who is in Texas. Linda, you're on the air.
Hi, Paul. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
I just want we travel the West a lot, and Utah is by far one of the most beautiful states you will ever see. And if you ever get an opportunity, they got Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon. I'm trying to think. Arches, Canyonlands.
Yeah, listen, I've heard that. I was out at the Grand Canyon this spring, and a couple of people were telling me about a specific place in Utah that rivals or beats the Grand Canyon.
Moab.
Yeah, but I can tell you right now, if you ever see me in Utah, I will be a hostage.
Well, you can come drive with us, ride with us. No, they have 3 million people. They're mostly all
many?
lined up along the interstate.
I had that many people in my neighborhood last night in New York.
Well, that's true. But I'm in a little town in Texas with 2,500 people. So.
Well, no, listen, I am saddened that I'll never get to see some of the sights that you just described.
Well, they are beautiful, and John Ford went to Moab after Monument Valley and filmed several films there.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and Moab, and actually we were there a couple of years ago and went out and saw where they made that movie, and it's a neat little restaurant that overlooks the Colorado.
Not only will I never go to Utah, I'll never use salt again.
Why? Oh, Salt Lake. Oh, Lord.
Hey, thank you very much. We're up against a break. 2 more hours to go.
Why?
Hey guys, this is my friend Barry.
Unlimited data, Barry?
Ranked #1 in customer service by J.D. Power, Barry.
Let me take your coat, you little award winner, you.
Actually.
Welcome back, and it's that time for Zim.
Yeah, Paul, time for today's headlines. As you know, we have 3 coaching vacancies currently open in the SEC. It's been quite a week of speculation, rumors. There's even been some fake Twitter accounts. But one thing we did learn today is that there's one name we can cross off the list of candidates, and that is Washington State coach Mike Leach. Washington State announcing a 1-year contract extension today. ESPN's Chris Lowe reported that Leach had conversations with Arkansas about its coaching job, but it appears for the time being that Leach will remain in Pullman. And speaking of coaches, Greg Schiano, he took a little jab at Tennessee fans during his introductory press conference at Rutgers yesterday. Unlike at Tennessee, where Vols fans protested against hiring Schiano 2 years ago, Rutgers fans voiced their outrage at not hiring Schiano last week. Asked about that yesterday, Schiano said, quote, "It just shows Jersey people are a little sharper. They get it."
Oh, sure.
Paul, I'm curious your reaction.
You know,
to
one
these
thing I would love is a Tennessee-Rutgers bowl game. The only problem with that, Rutgers will never get to a bowl game.
Yeah, maybe the Tax Slayer Bowl. But, you know, I was kind of hoping that Tennessee fans wouldn't become obsessed with the results of Rutgers football games. But, you know, after these comments from Schiano, I wouldn't blame them if they kind of
So
are.
he's saying the people in Jersey are sharper. They may have sharper objects on them, but they're not sharper than. I'm a Tennessean. He's talking to me. You're talking to me, Greg.
I'm siding with Tennessee on that.
You're talking to me. Jersey? I mean, I've been to Rutgers.
Well, I'm siding with you.
They have
on that one, Paul.
they have a
Going with
beautiful toxic waste dump right next door to the campus. Tennessee's on the river. It's a beautiful campus, the mountains, the river. I mean, come on, Greg. That's
Paul, we're going from Jersey
Okay,
here
sorry.
across the pond. We got one more news item for you here. Kentucky
goodness.
basketball. They're playing Michigan in London
How
next
cool.
year at the O2 Arena. So Big Blue Nation, get your passports out. You're heading to London.
My grandfather's from London. I'm going. He's not alive, but I'm still going. And we are back with 2 more hours to go. So Florida Atlantic taking on UAB this weekend in the what is that, Conference USA? Yeah, Conference USA championship game. And every Thursday night, Lane Kiffin hosts a radio show. And we just learned that he is not going to make his own radio show this week. Lane Kiffin not wanting to talk, that's a new one. I wonder why he's not going to make it. I say that because there are rumors flying that he could be meeting with yet another suitor. Reportedly met with Arkansas on Sunday. Who could he be meeting with today that would cause him to miss his radio show? Apparently he taped a segment for his own show, but he will not be there. Man. How can you not show up at your own radio show? Unless you're meeting with, like, the chancellor of another school.
Job interview got
Yeah, okay. Let's talk to Bruce Feldman from The Athletic. He's been all over a number of stories, including Clay Helton staying at Southern Cal. Bruce, always great to have you on. Appreciate it. But before we get to the Helton story, I have to ask you about Lane Kiffin. You spent a lot of time covering Lane Kiffin in your career. We just reported that Kiffin will not make his own radio show tonight. We know he met with Arkansas. There's rumors out there about other schools, including Ole Miss. What are your thoughts on the Lane train returning to the SEC?
Selfishly, Paul, I think it would be fun to have him back in the SEC. I'm sure maybe, Nick Saban might not love that, or maybe
No.
Greg Sankey might not love that, but he keeps things interesting, right? And he is a good offensive coach, and having been down at FAU, he's done a nice job there. I think the question, and look, Hunter Yurchek, who's the AD at Arkansas, he was the AD at Houston, who was close to hiring Lane back then before they hired Major Applewhite. I think the challenge is there is, are you, how comfortable are you with Lane as the head coach? But in terms of what I think he will bring them, if and when he takes the job, I think he makes them relevant again. And now, can he build an offense? And I think he can recruit. I think it would be a really interesting hire. Now look, I mean, he keeps it interesting. I mean, he really does. And I think that, if you're an AD, you know what you're getting into. And I think you kind of make sure you got everybody on board with, hey, this is how Lane's going to be, and this is what we signed up for, and we'll go from there.
Bruce, you know athletic directors all over the country, and I'd say 2 years ago there would have been a reluctance, reticence to hire him. Do you think it's still there?
In some corners, yeah, I think it is probably still there. But look, in fairness to Lane, those guys, those people who are ADs, they don't know the day-to-day, having worked with them or not. So I think they're going to be making that determination on perception and to some degree hearsay. I mean, your point is a good one, though. It's like 2 years ago. I mean, he's been there for a couple of years. It's not like he's completely off the grid. I mean, no matter where he could go to the Dakotas, and he put the Dakotas back on the grid because that's who, kind of how he is. But, he hasn't had anything alarming or any kind of behavior at this point that, if he did, it didn't surface to the point where it became a major issue for FAU. So, that expression about time, and I think a lot of people move on, and I don't know if Lane Kiffin is much different as a person than he was 2 or 3 years ago, but I think people are maybe a little more comfortable at it and say, okay, that was a few years ago. let's see how he is now if and when he does re-enter the SEC.
Talking to Bruce Feldman, and Bruce, when Saban lost the other night, I couldn't help but reflect back on your just incredible piece shortly after the national championship game, where Saban walks into the meeting, and I think it was Dan Enos who wasn't there. He had already bailed out, and you talked about the staff issues. And I wonder, and I realize it's still early, but just thinking back to what you learned then and what you hear every day, just what do you think is going on with Nick Saban beyond the obvious? He's recruiting right now, but he may also have to recalibrate his staff again.
Yeah, I think Paul, I think it shows just how hard it is to stay on top of college football. I think it's remarkable that Nick Saban and Alabama has stayed on as long on top. I mean, USC, Nebraska, Miami, in this modern era, and I'm not talking about, back 50 years ago or anything, but just in the last 25 years, no one's been able to stay on top for more than a couple of years because it's just really hard. There's all sorts of issues with the entitlement that you get from the complacency, staff chemistry, all these things. And I think what you get sometimes is, and what was reflected, and I appreciate the kind words for that story, you have a lot of guys who probably couldn't stay at Alabama, and the work environment is challenging to work for Nick Saban. I mean, guys burn out from that. The ones who don't are Jeff Allen and Scott Cochran, who are in a, really hands-on with the players, but kind of I don't want to say the good cops to the bad cop with Saban, but I think that makes it harder. And this is the first year that Saban's had a starting quarterback miss games. That's really unusual. It's not to say they didn't have any key injuries before, because they did, but I just think there's going to be a time when you're going to have a year or two where not everything goes right, but where a couple of things just don't go right. You saw that in the Auburn game. It could have gone the other way. I mean, I wouldn't bet against Nick Saban. As long as he's there, I think Alabama is going to be a force and is going to be a top 5 caliber program. But I think what we saw this year was this was the first time. I don't think they were, especially without Tua, I don't think they were significantly more talented than the teams they were playing. They certainly last year in the national title game weren't more talented than Clemson. I think with the LSU offense, they're not more talented than LSU. And when that happens, unless you're on top of your game every week, or when you play those teams, you're vulnerable. And that was a vulnerable team that, lost to some good teams. And, I don't think the sky is falling there, but I just think it's just really hard to stay just as high up on top of the college football world on the mountaintop as they've been.
Bruce Feldman with us. Bruce, you've reported a lot on Clay Helton. Why did the university end up sticking with him after it seemed a couple of weeks ago that he was a dead duck and long gone? What happened?
I think a lot of it has to do with the new leadership at USC, especially Carol Folt, the president, and to some degree the newer AD, Mike Bohn, who came in. And I think what was at issue was you have to start with this. This is a university that has been dealing with all sorts of scandals. It's not just in the athletic department, but beyond that. And I think what she looked at is saying, okay, whoever we hire, and let's say we were going to go after Urban Meyer, he becomes the face of the university because he's won championships, he's very visible, and it's no secret he had the issues last year with Zach Smith, and he was suspended 3 games. From my understanding, that part of it was going to be something that was a non-starter for them. And I think from my reporting, from what I've heard, is there was a real feeling of comfort with Clay Helton and the direction the program has gone in the last year. They had a really bad 2018, won 5 games, made some changes, and, despite some big quarterback injuries, I mean, they beat a really good Utah team with their 3rd-string quarterback. They won 8 games. The team never quit on him. And so I think given the fact of he has a really big buyout, and he and the staff do, and from what I've been told, it's actually more than has been reported. So I don't think it was a situation where, hey, there'll just be somebody else who will write a check and the problem's solved. From what I'm told, it's just not that simple when it comes to that situation. And I just feel like they looked at it and said, you know what? we're gonna give him a little more time here, and we'll reevaluate a year from now and see what our options are. But remember, this is a real leadership change that happened there, and I just think they felt comfortable with Clay Helton to be the guy to carry this forward and see if he can take the next step as a program, which could be as a team that can win a Pac-12 title again.
Bruce, I realize you work at Fox, and this may be an awkward question, but is it your best guess Urban Meyer will stay there for another season? And he's been very successful in his first season on TV.
Yeah, I mean, again, and as you prefaced it the right way, I do work at Fox, so take it for what it's worth. But I'm on the same conference calls with Urban on Mondays, and he is genuinely passionate about doing what he's doing right now. He's really inspired by it. He's really, amped up to do it. I think he's seen, I'm not talking just like ratings, but the feedback. I think he's been very driven by that. Now, look, I know nothing replaces the passion he had for coaching, but let's keep in mind, I mean, I did a couple of those Ohio State games last year. He had serious, significant health issues where he was down on one knee at one point in agonizing pain. It happened multiple games. Like, the cyst in his head and the issues that the pain that comes with it, especially, whether it's stress related or not, when you're Urban Meyer, the way he runs a football program, it's basically fourth and inches 24/7, 365. That's not the healthiest situation. So I think between I think how he's been kind of re-energized by the TV work, I don't think he's in a rush to jump back, certainly into college football, because I think he left a really good situation at Ohio State, and I'm not sure he's going to walk into a situation. There's a situation out there better for him than the one he left behind a year ago. So just change for change's sake, to me, doesn't seem like something he's going to jump to right now.
And I'll say this, I don't work at Fox, I work at ESPN, but he has been fantastic in the times I've seen him this year, and that has surprised a lot of people. He's been one of the biggest stars on television this fall, and I didn't think we'd be saying that. Bruce, Jim Harbaugh, I mean, the fact that he's 0-5 now against Ohio State, and it's really not creating much stir is maybe the biggest surprise of the season, but do you see any movement there?
I don't, because here's why, Paul. All we've heard for years, dating back to when he was a player at Michigan and certainly in the NFL as a quarterback, was how he was the ultimate competitor. Well, the ultimate competitor is 0-5 in the game that matters more than any other that he coaches in. And not only that, the last 2 years, they've gotten their butts kicked. If I'm Jim Harbaugh and I'm that big of a competitor and that much of a Michigan man, how can he walk away with such a gaping wound open, on his record there, going 0-5 and getting whooped the last 2 years? Now, they were close a couple of years ago, but the last 2 years haven't been close at all. I don't know how he would walk away from that. So, and if you're Michigan, I don't know. Like, one of the challenges with whether it's USC or in this discussion, like, who are you going to get where you're that confident he's going to go in there and beat Ohio State? I mean, Urban Meyer's not going to come back and coach the other team, so I don't know. Nick Saban's not going to leave what he has to go to Michigan. And the list of guys you'd have that much confidence in, it's a pretty short list. I mean, there's other really good coaches out there, but Jim Harbaugh was a top 3 coach in college, given what he had done both in the NFL and at Stanford. He walked in there, and he's getting his head rattled against the lockers by Ohio State. So I think he's still got to try to figure out, what can I do to narrow the gap, because right now it's sizable.
Finally, Bruce, it seems like it's going to happen with Jason Garrett. Could happen late tonight for all we know. But do you believe Lincoln Riley is the top candidate, or do you think that has just a media sensation story that has been propagated now for about 15 weeks?
I feel like that's more of a media story. I do. I mean, look, I could see Lincoln Riley definitely being on the NFL's radar. He's a great play caller. He's a creative offensive mind. But he has a really good situation right now at Oklahoma, where he's worked for probably the best AD in the country in Joe Castiglione. He's got a young family there. He's got a staff that he's put together. They've gotten better. By the way, the arch rival to them, Texas, they're struggling right now. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Lincoln Riley's just waiting for the first big NFL opportunity to jump. I think he knows the NFL will be there, down the road. Let me make I'm in a good position to make a run at winning a national title or two. Let me ride this out. And as for Jerry Jones, you go in there, it's Jerry Jones' show. I'm not sure if Lincoln Riley, evaluates that at the end of the season and thinks that's the best place for him at this time.
We could go on all day, but time is limited for Bruce. Bruce, thank you for coming on. Fantastic stuff.
Always a pleasure, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Nobody better than Bruce Feldman. We'll take a short break, get your reaction to that and more as we continue here on Thursday afternoon. Yeah, it's still Thursday afternoon. It means upset alert. So any big upsets going down this weekend, Danny Brown?
What's up, Paul? Yeah, no Kubiak, who tends to sort of game show host this segment better than anyone could, but I will try to live up to his legacy. Let's start.
I wondered why I didn't have a headache today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, screaming Cougs, as we know him back here in the control room. But, let's start in the American Conference where Memphis is taking on Cincinnati in the championship. They are 9-point favorites. Paul, is Memphis on upset alert?
They are not.
All right, we'll leave the alarm out of it. Let's move it to the Big 12 then and keep the spread the same. 9 points, Oklahoma favored over Baylor. Are the Sooners on upset alert?
Not feeling the love for the Bears, I'm sorry.
Wow, no upsets this championship. What's the deal? LSU, 6.5-point favorites in Atlanta against Georgia. We heard from Chip. He seemed pretty confident.
Chip was chippy.
Tigers on upset alert?
What do you think?
No, no, I don't think so at all. I think it's going to be a blowout. Let's keep it moving. No upsets so far. The Atlantic Coast Conference, Clemson, hosting Virginia right here in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium.
Keep going.
All right, yeah, we won't even mention that one.
It would be an upset if this game is interesting.
The Big Ten, Ohio State, 16.5-point favorites against Wisconsin. Any upset alert there?
No.
Wow.
By the way, I have one for you.
Is there any games left on our list?
I don't think we've done the game out in Santa Clara yet.
Could it have something to do with these people angry behind me, potentially?
Listen, it has nothing to do with my love for Utah. Hit the bell, Oregon.
Utah versus Oregon. Let's sound the alarm, and let's sound it twice because it is a big-time upset alert.
I can't get any more bad press from Utah, so why worry?
Put them on the alert.
Why try to suck up to them now?
So basically, Paul, you said of all the conference title games, you're not expecting anything close to an upset anywhere except for the Pac-12 title game.
Well, listen, there's about 30 conference championship games. I'm not going into the fine print on the agate page, but of the major ones, this is the one I like the most.
Yeah.
And the reason why I like the upset, I think Utah players have been less than focused on this game. I think they've been way too focused on me.
I agree.
Back to the calls, and a fan of a program that doesn't have to worry too much about SEC championship games, and that's Cat Daddy.
Oh, man, that was hot this time.
I remember South Carolina was in the game 9 years ago.
All right, we won one ACC championship, and that was before it was a cupcake conference.
You're right.
Well, now, here's the rumors going around today. They're looking for an offensive coordinator for Munchunk.
Okay.
They're talking Mike Bobo. But I'm saying to myself, these radio commentators, I'm saying to myself, dude, the pond ain't got a lot of fish in it. If Munchcap only gets one more year, how is he going to find a good offensive coordinator to come in here knowing he might not be here for a year?
Well, KD, have you ever been desperate for a job?
No.
And by the way, do not ask me the same question.
Well, I've never had to worry about getting a job. I'd work any job I can get, but for a year, if I knew I might not have that job.
But what you have to understand, though, Cat Daddy, I don't know if Bobo's interested. I'm sure he's getting a buyout after getting fired. So if he gets the job, he gets his buyout, and he probably gets a 2 or 3 year deal because that's what his agent will negotiate. So what does he care?
Point will take him, Mr. Finebaum. That's why you the man.
Thank you very much. Glad somebody realizes that. Mark is up next in Texas. Hey, Mark.
Paul, good afternoon, partner. What a great time of the year it is to be a college football fan.
It really is.
It doesn't get any better. And we better enjoy this, too, by the way. because the next 5-6 years we might be considering this the good old days.
Listen. I'm already considering this the good old days.
I'm with you, but I don't even know if I got 5 years left in me.
No, I don't think I do. I don't have 5 minutes left if I go to Utah.
Yeah, well, you know what? Why doesn't University of Hawaii have a team in the Final Four every year?
That is funny. I just got invited to be the commencement speaker at Utah this year.
Oh, you did?
I'm gonna wear an Alabama jersey.
Here's my question for you.
Okay.
Before we get too far afield, you know Eli Manning. Does he have any coaching blood in him, you think?
You know, it's interesting. I left New York this morning. There was a big article in the papers up there about Eli starting Monday night I think Monday night at Philadelphia. And I think that's a nice way to go out. I mean, Eli's been resting now for 2 months. I think Eli Manning would be a really good coach.
I'm thinking Ole Miss myself. I know. What are the
You talk about a buzz. I mean, the best player in school history walking in as a head coach.
It should draw some recruits, if nothing else, to get them. I don't know. I don't know where he would find his staff.
I mean, they've already changed the speed limits. Hey, it wouldn't be hard to find a staff. I mean, I can tell you right now who his offensive coordinator would be.
Who's that?
Peyton Manning. I mean, he needs the money, doesn't he?
Tennessee, that's going to be delicious.
He can bring Archie and Peyton and Cooper in as consultants.
And Mark Bavaro can coach tight ends.
Exactly, and
I'm telling you, there's got to be a pool.
I mean, at some point, after next year, David Cutcliffe will probably be let go at Duke, so he can come back.
See, I think we got a plan here for Mississippi, and I don't even live there.
Well, here's the most interesting thing, Mark. The most influential booster at Ole Miss is his father. Right. So, I mean, if he really wants a job, all he has to do is call Dad.
You know, I think we might have started some scuttlebutt here.
I like it. Eli Manning to Ole Miss, and maybe not this time, but maybe the next time.
Paul, Merry Christmas
to
you
very
and your
much.
family and all the listeners and everything. This is a great time to be a college football fan.
Mark, really enjoyed hearing from you. Randy is in Ohio.
Hey, Paul, how's it going today?
Randy, great. Thank you.
Great show all week, man. I never miss a minute of your show.
Thank you.
I always catch first take in the morning. I watch you guys all day, basically. Love the show. Wish we had something like that, even close to that up here. But anyway, I wanted to make a comment on what you said yesterday on the Stephen A's show about Georgia and Alabama basically just being mediocre teams, you know?
I don't remember using that word, but
well, here's what you did say, Paul. You said that Michigan is a mediocre team. Now, if Notre Dame came into Alabama,
I'm not being that guy, but I don't think I've ever used the word mediocre to describe Alabama or Georgia.
No, you did use it to describe Michigan. Now, if Georgia only beat Notre Dame by 7 and Michigan beat Notre Dame by 31, then I'm guessing Georgia is way mediocre than Michigan.
No, Georgia is not mediocre. Georgia plays a very conservative game, and when Notre Dame came down, Georgia played the kind of game it wanted to play. I thought they should have been a little more aggressive. In terms of what happened that night at Ann Arbor, I still haven't figured that game out. It was a downpour. Notre Dame seemed intimidated by the atmosphere, and they got run over.
Well, here's my final comment. You know, Michigan's ranked 14th in the country right now with 2 much better wins than Alabama's got on their resume. Right now, they beat the 15th ranked team in the country and the 16th ranked team in the country, and Alabama's their best wins against Tennessee, who lost to Georgia State, and BYU. Actually, BYU is from Utah, if you didn't remember that.
Well, there's a good chance, Randy, and thanks for misquoting everything I said yesterday on First Take. By the way, for those of you who misquote people, there are tapes, so not that we need to bring them out, but I have a pretty decent idea what I said. There's a good chance Alabama and Michigan will play. That would be a fascinating game in the Citrus Bowl. I think there's a chance of it. I hope there is. Scott is in South Carolina. Hello, Scott.
Paul, it's a pleasure to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
I will try not to misquote you regarding your comment. I think it was kind of phrased in the form of a question about, is the window closing on Saban? And I had to laugh. I mean, I think Alabama has the number 3 recruiting class, a bunch of returning starters. I see an 11-win season. I mean, they do have LSU and Georgia next year.
And Southern Cal.
They're going to beat one of those teams. Oh, yeah, of course. And we're starting out with Clay Helton and Southern Cal, which I think will be a win. But the one thing I wanted to ask you was defensive coordinator. Have you heard anything about our need for a new defensive coordinator?
Listen, yeah. I've heard a lot of rumors, but since I've spent most of my week on the opposite direction from Tuscaloosa, I can't tell you my information is great. I don't think Saban has made any final determinations yet on his staff. Saban's doing what all coaches are doing right now. They're recruiting. They're days away from the National Signing Day, so I don't have any doubt he'll evaluate. He hasn't really had time to do it, and I think it's always a good idea when you pause a couple of days after the worst defensive performance in Alabama history. So,
absolutely.
I don't know if you can blame the defensive coordinator. I know that Saban likes Pete Golding. He trusted him last year when his original choice for DC blew up in his face. And
well, the defense hasn't been good since the days of Pruitt and of course
it's been terrible.
Coach. So I think it is time to look at that closer.
But my question is this: how can you keep changing coaches every year and get and improve the result? So
well, I think that if we took someone like Utah's defensive coordinator. They had a pretty good defense.
Well, by the way, here, you just said something. Had Will Muschamp been fired, I have no doubt Nick Saban would have been waiting outside Ray Tanner's office trying to hire him, and so would 4 or 5 other people, by the way. Will he look around at coordinators who are losing their jobs? Yeah, I don't have any doubt that Nick Saban is not one that really cares about anyone's feelings. So he'll see what the lineup looks like and make a determination. But I think he knows just change for change's sake is not the key to success, nor is it the key to continuity at Alabama.
I just wanted to kind of address the window closing, and I think it's still wide open.
Well, listen, what I said was not related to Nick Saban as a coach. What I said was the window of a dynasty is closing, and I strongly believe that is correct. I think it would be very difficult. Alabama could win the title next year, but I don't see them winning 2 out of the next 4.
No, okay, that's fair. I don't think they're going away anytime soon, so I think they will be in the national.
But Scott, listen, I'm not going to quibble over semantics, but when you make a statement, the question I was asked Tuesday morning was about the dynasty, and I simply answered it saying I think the window is closing. Closing and closed are 2 different things, by the way. If you're closing a window, that means there's still a crack. So listen, anyone who wants to tell me that Alabama could win the national championship next year is not telling me anything I don't already know. But I will wait to see how the playoff turns out this year before making any predictions. And you're talking to someone who's predicted Alabama to win the title for about the last 8 years or 9 years. And I've been right about half the time. We are heading to a break. We should have been heading to a break about 4 minutes ago, but we're still getting there.
We actually are finishing on Saturday this week, so guys can get to the President's Cup in Australia. So the golf's supposed to be over at 3 o'clock, and the SEC Championship kicks at 4:10. So one way or another, I'll be able to watch it no matter what. My caddy says it's the worst day of his job is a Saturday while we're playing and Georgia's playing, because I have the phone in his bib the whole time, and he says I could care less about the golf shot. I just want to get back to my phone in between shots. But you know what? It takes your mind off of it a little bit, especially for winning.
for winning it, it kind of pumps you up. But in between shots, it's always good fun to watch it. I remember watching the Georgia-South Carolina game with Dustin Johnson a couple of years ago, walking down a fairway together in between each shot. So we all are big college football fans, and we enjoy watching it while we're out there. Well, you know, we've pretty much turned ourselves into a year-round sport, and if you take the fall off like we used to back in the day, you feel so far behind the eight ball, it's almost difficult to catch up if you come back just to start the new year. So a lot of the big names are playing in the fall now, and these tournaments are getting a lot of good notoriety with big-name players playing, and we got 18 guys playing this week in a great field that Tiger's hosting. So we enjoy making the money. So these guys want to keep paying us to come play. We're going to keep playing. We need Tiger. Tiger is the lone wolf that moves the needle for us, and he drives the ratings for us. And when he's playing well, we all make more money. So we hope he lives to 60 and wins once a year for the next 15 years. So he's the man. He's the reason we're all playing for a lot more money than we used to, and we all respect that for him. And the way he's come back from his injuries and other things in his life and come back to win that Masters is just an incredible feat, in my opinion. And, you know, he's in as good a shape as ever. I was hanging out with him this week, and he's fired up to go play and represent the country next week and be a first playing captain. So I think he's in a good spot in his life, and we hope he continues to play well.
Before you go, Kevin, obviously the game is Saturday, and you will be paying close attention. I realize you're a Georgia man, but can the Dogs do it?
I think it's going to be highly interesting. They're obviously very potent on offense. We have one of the best defenses in the country. Our offense hasn't showed its best play yet, and I think we can attack them on defense. So if somehow we can get Burrow out of the pocket and get him on his back a few times, we can mess him up a little bit and somehow score. I think we'd have to score 28 points to win the game.
Welcome back to the program, and we're glad you're here. Let's continue with more phone calls. And Joseph is up next in Mississippi. Hello, Joseph.
Hi, Mr. Paul. How are you today?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Good. Listen, I just want to ask, I've heard some rumblings about, which I don't really understand why, like who our next head coach is going to be. And I agree with you. I think it was really dirty and sad situation the way they fired Coach Luke. I thought he should have had another year under his belt at least with those recruiting classes. But and we'll see what you thought about. Somebody called me today and said that they thought that Lane Kiffin, but I know I watch your show, but said something about he might go to Arkansas. I know John Day was vouching for that, but if they're called there about it, and I want to get your opinion on that. What do you think, and who we think we should get? I know Mike Leach did just get his contract extended.
Yeah, listen, as far as Lane is concerned, I think he could have the Arkansas job if he wanted it. If you were objective about rosters, Ole Miss has a much better roster. I mean, Plumlee would play well to Lane Kiffin's offensive prowess.
Yes, sir, that's
I think
fair.
the key. I think what some people are missing about Lane Kiffin, and I'll just give you an observation. There's more to Lane Kiffin than just Lane Kiffin. It's the staff that he would bring, and I've heard some names. I'm not going to say anything because these guys have jobs right now, but.
I understand.
I would tell you that if Lane Kiffin gets hired at either, if Lane gets hired at Ole Miss, I think he will blow you away by some of the people he brings.
Well, that might be happening then. You know, that's what I was thinking. That's what the phone calls I've had today, that someone mentioned that to me.
I mean, there was a story making the rounds that Ole Miss folks were going to see him today. So I think that story will either be confirmed or denied, or at least reported positively or negatively by the end of the day.
I believe so. Also, I want to give a shout-out to Larry from Shelby with his 44 beers there. That's unbelievable. It's like, that's why my boy Stu called me. And
I just wonder. I don't want to listen. We don't want to encourage anything here, but I'm just amazed that anyone can do that.
And that's crazy. And I was like, you know what? If I knew how to get in touch with Larry, I think it'd be funny. It'd be fun. Man, boy Stu would drive down to Shelby, wherever that is in Alabama.
Yeah, Shelby is south of Birmingham.
I think that'd be a great piece for the show.
Yeah. No, listen. Thank you, Joseph. I mean, How many ounces of beer? So 24 times 16. What's that?
Too much.
So, 384. 384 ounces of beer in your body. I mean, I would like.
And probably a few cigarettes.
There's no telling what else. You're absolutely right. Rock is up next. Hey, Rock.
Hey, Paul. It's been years since I talked to you. I was the one that called for Muschamp to Florida. And I'm here to defend Pete Golding.
Sure.
It's all about attrition at Alabama. Let's play the what-if game. Quentin Williams had eligibility left, so did Mac Wilson.
Sure.
Those two back with Dylan Moses, we're not hearing any complaints about Golding.
No, you're right.
Saban, Golden has the same philosophy as Saban. Get pressured with 4, leave cornerbacks on the island. Our past 2 recruiting classes, our number 1 defensive linemen in both of them have abandoned us. They were both edge rushers. Terrell Lewis, great edge rusher. Something wrong with him this year. Just didn't see the performance we were expecting. So that's the big thing. It's just attrition. How many defensive linemen do we have injured? They like to rotate 6 to 8 guys per game. And at some points, we were having 7 and 8 freshmen between linebackers and defensive line and safeties. So it's just one of those freak things where guys leave for the NFL early, guys don't even come to class, and injuries. I mean, could you imagine Quentin Williams, a healthy Dylan Moses, and Mac
Yeah, but
Wilson?
you know, Rock, listen, I mean, you make a great point, but that's football. And
it is.
In Alabama, it has to be frustrating, but Saban knows pretty quickly. You know, you couldn't have predicted Quentin Williams because, quite frankly, nobody knew who he was before the season. But
no, 1 year wonder. I mean, we all expected one more year out of him, but redshirt sophomore.
That I said this the other day to somebody, and the transfer portal will end up getting everyone. But you know, Nick Saban maybe more than most because not the transfer portal and the draft. I mean the combination of those two is driving coaches crazy.
Attrition. It just depleted our defense this year. Between the past 2 number 1 recruits, excuse me, hang on 1 second. Past 2 number 1 recruits that we've had in our recruiting classes, both gone, both edge rushers. LeBron Ray going down, Dylan Moses going down. Oh, I can't even think of the other senior interior linebacker that got hurt also.
It's been tough. Hey, hate to run. We are heading to a break. I knew we were late. Kind of the story of my life. I'll be right back. We welcome you back here to the program, and let's see if we can squeeze a few more calls in. And Jordan is in North Carolina. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. First of all, outside of Coach Orgeron, who do you think would be the SEC Coach of the Year?
I would probably vote for Jeremy Pruitt, considering how now I realize he was responsible for the beginning of the year, but I thought the way he brought that team back was spectacular.
Yeah, I agree. He's the one I was thinking of. I thought Dan Mullen might be another
He did a good
decent
job.
choice. Yeah, I mean, he Put a lot of stock into Felipe Franks, and he got hurt. And
I also thought Mark Stoops did a really nice job with about a third or fourth string quarterback.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. He totally changed the offense there. It was pretty fun to watch Kentucky play for sure.
But I tell you, I thought Jeremy Pruitt had to get his team to a bowl game, and when they were staring down the barrel of a gun early in the year, they looked like there was no chance they were going to make it.
No, everybody was thinking 1 or 2 wins max for the season after how the season began. So for them to potentially have 8 wins, that's highly impressive. I definitely agree with that for sure. My other question to you is this. A lot of people are saying Alabama, Virginia, the Orange Bowl. Who in the world wants to watch that?
Yeah, is that what the latest speculation is? I have not seen that.
Yeah, I saw that. That was one of the predictions that they're talking about with Alabama and Virginia, because the likelihood of Virginia playing Clemson and losing. I think that naturally puts them, I think, in the Orange Bowl.
I mean, hold on a second. I think Alabama right now is, if I read the tea leaves correctly, now Georgia goes to the Sugar Bowl, then I think Florida would likely go to the Orange Bowl.
Okay. All right. Florida and Virginia, that may not be
Yeah,
bad.
no, I think what you're going to see is Alabama right now, because they fell behind Auburn, would end up going to the Citrus Bowl to play a Big Ten team.
Oh, boy.
Could be Michigan, Wisconsin.
I don't know how Nick Saban's going to keep a bunch of motivated
Well, the bottom
kids,
line is he's not going to be
do that.
able to, because players like Najee Harris and the wide receivers who are coming out, they're not going to want to play in that game.
No, they're not. And I think that's also going to lead to the expansion of the playoff, to have some of these other bowl games matter, to keep some of these kids actually playing college football instead of them thinking about the draft.
And you know what? I don't blame them. And I know that sounds.
No, I don't either.
But if you've got your future in front of you and you're used to playing for championships, and now you've got to find a way.
No,
I mean, I just don't
absolutely.
see any upside. I'm sorry.
No, I totally agree. Those college coaches aren't going to pay those guys bills. So, absolutely, I don't blame them one bit for going early. If that's their choice and their ability to be able to do that, then they should be able to do that. I just wish those games mattered just a little bit more for those guys, and they're just not going to, I think, until they expand the playoff.
No,
the way it is.
Hey, Jordan, thank you for the call. We have an hour to go, and don't forget tomorrow we're in Atlanta. Our guest list tomorrow is pretty unbelievable. We'll talk to all the football people and Hall of Famers and legends, and of course Commissioner Sankey. But we will also talk to Ric Flair. Jeff Foxworthy will drop by to say hello in his hometown. So a lot of football and a lot of entertainment, other than the host, of course.
Always wanted him to go to Nebraska, and he always wanted to go to Nebraska. And but we figured out that probably wasn't going to happen. And then one week Tennessee flew into the little airport here and watched Joe throw. Alabama flew in, and they were supposed to let us know something the next week. And then Coach Meyer called on, I think, the Monday of the following week, and it didn't take. Joe had to let us know, and so he told Coach Meyer he had to call us, and then eventually Coach Meyer called me, and he said it took 8 minutes for him to commit. Is there something wrong or something? And I said, no, he just wanted to let his parents know before it hit the media that he was going to commit. But it was actually a fun process, probably more. That was a little more relaxing than say the transfer process, because he was making one of the more important decisions that he was ever going to make at that point. I always say that when you're watching your son at whatever sport, you do look at it through dad goggles, and so it's clouded somewhat. And but I always thought, he was the best quarterback out there, even at Ohio State. But I was also realistic enough to know that I wasn't in there breaking down the film every day and grading the quarterbacks and seeing all the details that go into being a quarterback at say Ohio State. So we kept in touch quite a bit. A lot of people were pulling at him in different directions. Even other schools continued to call, and he said, "Hey, I need 48 hours or so, Dad, to really sort through this, and I don't want any calls." And I said, "Okay, well, your mom and I'll keep giving you a call, and you'll let us know." And he said, "No, that means you and Mom too. No calls from you." So I knew at that point he was struggling with it, but needed time to himself, and basically he came to that decision on his own that, hey, LSU is the best place for him. I've seen pictures in the last couple of days of me, and I mean that says it all. The big smile I have on my face, and it's something that you'll remember forever. And just that whole night. So we didn't shed a lot of tears, but it was a great night.
We are back for the final hour. A reminder, tomorrow night, all day for that matter, we're live in Atlanta, and we have quite a show for you. but we're not done here tonight. So let's continue with more phone calls. We have some breaking news. Remember, Joey Gatewood competed with Bo Nix for the starting job. Well, he has just announced via Twitter he's going to become a Wildcat. Joey Gatewood going to Lexington. Congratulations, Joey. That is a big pickup. Let's get back to the calls, and Mark is in Florida. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Paul. Boy, I tell you, you get it on both ends, don't you? You get blamed for carrying water for Alabama, and you get it from the other end too. And it just seems like you.
Hey, I mean,
you know,
this is just a hobby for me. I have a real. I don't take it too seriously.
Hey, I just wanted to mention a few things. The Gators. The fact that we've managed to get 10 wins. I was one of the guys you talked to at the beginning of the season. I couldn't honestly say I saw 10 wins coming. And but things happen, and you don't really know until you eke out a couple of wins, and you get better as you go on. I think that's pretty much true for Auburn also. I mean, if the fact that they eked out a win against Oregon there early in the season, I think they played now that Auburn would kill them.
Yeah, when you think, I never forget being in where was it, Orlando on opening night, week 0, and Florida was pretty fortunate to get out of there with a win.
Exactly.
Against a bad team, by the way, which I happen to think was good at the time. Shows you what I know. I would have never dreamed Miami would be that bad.
Yeah, I think that Utah is going to be fine if they ever get it finished. But I also heard that all the cool people are going to move back. But I just think they're in over their head. If you brought them in against the first 5 teams in the SEC, they wouldn't fare well.
No, well, listen. I've watched Utah once or twice. I saw their game against Colorado, and maybe I think it was a Southern Cal game. But I mean, most of their games start 10:30 at night.
Right. But I did also want to mention, that the Gators, we spent most of the year without our best offensive ball player in Tony.
That's true.
Not having him available, and a couple of our better defenders. And, it's just something you have to live with, but you get these teams that complain about injuries and stuff. I mean, the Gators were really nailed with injuries.
Mark, well said. Hey, thank you very much. Great to have you on the air. Let's check in with Steve, who is up next. Steve, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I've been a longtime fan. I call occasionally, but I had called you and spoke a couple of times regarding University of Alabama, which I'm a graduate from, that I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, that everybody was ranking them high. And I just had some major concerns. The defense, and then, that got worse with the injuries, and, we're just really concerned about some things on the offensive line, too. So that brings me to my question. What are we reloading with? Is Alabama going to reload? Or is it going to be, I know the recruiting is always at the top, but still, you've got to have some maturity there.
Well, I mean, think about this. Alabama's defense is extraordinarily young and talented, and you would think by next year they will be significantly stronger and more well-rounded. They're also recruiting very well. Now, the difference, I think, is Alabama is going to be one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country when next season begins. But there won't be the separation, I don't think, that we've seen in the last 8 or 9 years.
Sure, and that goes with the things you've been saying about dynasties, too. That.
I mean, listen, I don't think if Clemson will come back next year with Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
Hard for me to believe they're not going to be ranked number 1 or 2.
I get that.
I've got to think through Ohio State. I mean, LSU will not have a quarterback that's proven next year. That's going to be a big drop-off. But they'll still have a lot of talent. So I mean, I think Alabama, Georgia, if Fromm stays, and I suspect he will, they'll be up. I mean, I don't think the top 5 next year is going to look dramatically different than it did this year.
And the early game with Georgia will be interesting.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, Alabama will have a brutal beginning to the year. They'll start with Southern Cal and deal with Georgia. They'll be at LSU. So, I mean, LSU is a little bit of a mystery, but I don't think anybody at LSU is overly concerned about next year right now.
Sure. Got to make it happen now.
Yeah, and by the way, Alabama, the projections are either the Outback or the Citrus Bowl, and again, the teams would be Minnesota or Wisconsin. It's going to be a Big Ten matchup regardless. I mean, the idea that Alabama is now possibly moving toward the Outback is really interesting. The Citrus is considered the best of those non-New Year's Day bowls, but there's a lot of movement going on, and I think part of the problem for Alabama is as these power brokers sit in the room Saturday night trying to decide where to place their teams. Not a lot of enthusiasm right now for Alabama. I mean, the fan base is great, but will they travel? Will they field the team? I say that jokingly. Let's go to Elizabeth, who's up next.
Hi, Paul.
Hey there.
Hey, I'm a little bit upset.
Really?
Yeah, these Auburn fans come out of the woodworks, the family Auburn fans, and then I get on Paul Finebaum, and I'm kicked back today, and I've heard about Paul down in Alabama, and I'm like, really? And then I just heard you say, well, we're ranked 12, so are you Alabama or what? I mean, really? Which one is it?
Well, Elizabeth, I don't. My hearing isn't bad. I mean, it's not like.
Yeah,
I can't hear through walls, but I definitely heard what you asked me. So when I ask you to repeat it, I'm not doing it because I'm confused. I'm really not sure what you were asking me.
Well, I mean, it's like I've heard that we had 12 men on the field. Okay, Auburn had 12 men on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the 1 second thing. Okay,
Yeah.
well, Auburn had the 1 second thing last year when we played them.
Yeah. So
But
I mean,
my
I guess
thing
what
is
I'm gleaning from this, Elizabeth, is you're
the
not.
dynasty when Nick Saban is recruited and he's recruited all the top 10. The dynasty for Alabama is going to be over with.
No, Elizabeth, I'm confused. Are you saying the dynasty is still ongoing or it's over?
Oh, it's going now.
Oh, it is?
But when it
Elizabeth,
reaches,
do me a favor, would you? Because I'm public school education.
okay.
I mean, I did the best I could, but I didn't make it into the Ivy League. So would you explain to me how, when you're ranked number 12th in the country, and you'll be playing in either the Citrus Bowl or the Outback Bowl, how that would constitute the dynasty continuing?
Well, I guess that goes about like Auburn, Ohio State, all these other teams. How many times have they played? And the dynasty is going to go on.
Well, no, Elizabeth, I don't want to give you a lesson in word meaning.
You're just telling me I'm going to go play this. We're going to go play the Citrus Bowl. Alabama is, and our dynasty for this year is over.
Well, no, dynasties aren't annual events.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that.
Dynasties are a continuum, and right now, last year, I've always wanted to be a teacher. So here's my chance.
Go ahead.
So Elizabeth, you weren't a teacher, were you?
No, I worked at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company.
Okay. Perfect. Good company. Yeah, got some on my car right now. But my point to you is this. Alabama won the championship in 2015. They lost in 2016. They won in 2017. And then they lost by 28 in 2018. And this year, they're not back in the playoffs. I mean, they're not even back in what I would call a top-tier bowl. So my question back to you is this. How's Alabama's dynasty continuing?
Oh, with our recruiting that we got coming up. But there's something you said, too, that I need you to clarify. And I know I'm
Alabama's not the only one recruiting. LSU's ranked in the top 2 or 3. Clemson, Ohio State, Auburn's up there.
You said Jalen Hurts. You just got through telling, what's his name, Larry?
Yeah.
That our quarterback was in Oklahoma.
Well, no, I was joking about the backup quarterback.
Yeah, that was my man. You know, I can't help what they do, but, you know, we had some injuries. Everybody has some injuries.
Elizabeth, I don't mean this. I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but I do.
Roll damn Tide. That's all I got to say.
What was that again?
Roll damn Tide.
Roll damn Tide.
Roll damn Tide.
Roll damn Tide.
Roll damn Tide, Paul.
I'm gonna one up you. I'm gonna raise you and roll damn Tide you again.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Alabama fans really taking that loss well. We'll be right back.
There's been people from all over the world that have, sent us letters. There's people from London, Singapore, people from Australia, New Zealand, all the way to Hawaii, and then got some letters from Japan. So, it's not just, the fans that are, watching us play football, but, I guess everyone outside of the SEC, and I've had a lot of head coaches from, teams that we've played, get in contact with, us too, and wishing us well. So it's been really awesome. I've had conversations with Coach Saban, and, kind of what I said the last time, on TV with Kirk Herbstreit, is pretty much the same thing Coach Saban told me. And, those are the two things that, I felt I needed to take into consideration. And it's something I still need to sit down and talk to about with my family. Haven't really had that opportunity because of the rehab that I need to go through, and then I'm still trying to finish up my school here. I want to play, anytime. I've played hurt many times, over the course of 2 years that I've been the starter here. But I'd like to say this is just a totally different situation. This is a unique situation. This isn't something that I can rush, if I want to play to my full potential, I know that I can't just come back and play on it as if it were my ankle. So it's just something that I need to take into consideration. And, I think a lot of, what you just said, me wanting to play, I think a lot of that has to go into my decision-making too, as to whether I stay or leave. This is probably going to be the biggest decision of my life. This is where I seek advice from, what I believe, and it's where I seek advice from my parents. But truly, at the end of the day, the decision comes down to me, whether I feel like it's right for me to stay, whether it's right for me to go. It's just a really, really big decision, man, and everybody just wants to know. So that's what makes it even bigger, I'd say.
And we are back here on the program, and let's continue with more of your calls. And Iman is up next. Hey, Iman.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. How's it going?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I just got back from Auburn. I went back to Auburn again today, and I've been feeding these kids lost in the bushes over there. And I guess some of them will eventually get out and come home. But, after watching that game at the end of it Saturday, I think that I have a whole new outlook on the term I've been in the bush. So anyway, but now I was listening to that last lady call. And I was trying to figure out who she was a fan of and what she was trying to say. And you tried to take her back and walk through it. Does she not know there's two L's on the word roll? They're not silent. And she got damn down pretty good. I give her an A for that because I'm sure she said that word quite a bit. But Bama fans, do they realize there's a D-E at the end of Tide? It's rolls damn Tide, not roll Tide. I mean, I don't get that. But, you know, that lady was as incoherent as Jim's call was yesterday. And I really didn't understand why Jim called in to tackle somebody from California with his politics. Nobody cares about his politics, and we could have done without that lady's phone call today because, I mean, you know, we're recruiting, Paul. We are damn recruiting. War damn Eagle. You have a great afternoon.
Squirrel's up next. Squirrel, thanks for the call. Good afternoon.
You know, this is just strictly random, this placement behind I-Man, but now that he's mentioned Jim, I can't mention Jim this call, I guess. But the reason I called, Paul, is that it just seems like you're making an awful big deal about this number 12 ranking when you know it's not legit. Can we agree on that?
Listen, I just report what I see.
Okay. Of these 11 teams that are supposedly better than Alabama, you wouldn't even have to think hard about it to know that Bama on a neutral field would beat 8 or 9 of them tomorrow. So therefore, again, well, to kind of go to I-Man's call and to your leg humpers call yesterday, to piggyback on that, the committee to Alabama is like mainstream media to Trump. I mean, it's just totally out of whack, and this poll is not legit, and anybody who thinks it is laughable. This year will be over soon. Next year will happen. I think it's going to be business as usual. And didn't they win 10 games this year, Paul? Didn't Bama win 10 games?
Well, Squirrel, I think we all know how many Bama won.
Haven't they won 10 games 12 years in a row?
I'm not really sure I understand why that is germane to this conversation.
Does that not constitute a dynasty? Thank you for taking my call.
I mean, I don't know why Alabama fans are so upset. I didn't say they didn't have a dynasty. I just said the window is closing on the dynasty. Man. Lanier is next in North Carolina. Hello, Lanier.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
That's great. I got on the tail end of Larry's comments a while ago. Did he have heart surgery? Is that what I heard?
I mean, I think at some point he did, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to tell him I did too. I'm a big Bama fan, but I live in Charlotte. But I had heart surgery, and I wanted to give it to God, and God is big enough to take care of him. Wanted to say that. Then I wanted to say a couple of 3 other things. First of all, I think if Saban would put in the contract for his coordinators that they have to stay 3 or 4 years, it might help.
Yeah, but you can't. I mean, listen, Steve Sarkisian was hired 2 years ago after being a consultant, and then he left 3 weeks later. So you can't force people to do anything.
Well, I understand that. But anyway, it seems like they do have a name, and they could get people who would be willing to do that, to stay for 2 or 3 years maybe. My other comment was, I know why there's so much craziness from the Alabama fans. I'm an Alabama fan. They're in a lot of pain right now. And I think it's like, I thought about it. If you fall from 10 feet, it hurts. But if you fall from 100 yards, it really hurts. And I think that's what's happened. And we're not used to that. And we're in a lot of pain. And that's why people are incoherent. When you're in pain, you say stupid things sometimes, right?
No doubt.
And you don't know what you're saying half the time. But anyway, we're used to being up at the top, and I think it's really hurting bad, and I think that's what's going on. But kudos to Auburn. Yeah, too bad I don't understand why we're 12th. I really don't. That makes no sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
No, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, people don't blame me for quoting where the Tide ended up. I think they're a legitimate top 10 team. I don't think there's any debate about that. But that's not where they are.
That's right. All right. Well, maybe they'll win the Outback Bowl.
Does it matter?
Not really, and that's what's going to happen, I'm afraid. But I am pulling for Hurts, and I do hope he picks up the trophy. I hope.
Well, yeah, listen, I mean, Jalen Hurts right now has virtually no chance to win the Heisman.
But I mean, the team maybe.
Oh, okay, yeah, he's got a good chance to win the Big 12, that's for sure. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Let's continue with more calls. And Mike wants to say something about what Squirrel said. Mike, go right ahead.
Well, Paul, you know, I listened to Greg, and Greg at least came on with a modicum of, you know, being humble and acknowledging what happened. When I listen to Squirrel's meltdown, I mean, that just let me know the Bama fans are just totally off the rails. I respect Alabama. They have had a dynasty. The dynasty is over. Get over it, Squirrel. And let's move on to what's relevant, and that's Georgia and LSU. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Chuck is up next.
Is this Paul?
Yes, it is.
Hey, I was listening to, I guess it was Elizabeth, that she called a little bit a while ago. I want to kind of clear some things up, a few things. Do you consider Bill Belichick and the Patriots, their dynasty's dead? Do you consider that? Do you think that's true?
Well, they're defending Super Bowl champions. I think that would be a pretty silly question to ask.
No, I'm not talking about that. Is their dynasty dead?
Well, I'm going to repeat back to what I just got through saying, Chuck. I know you're trying to squeeze your thesis into a hole the size of the point of a needle, but
no.
The Patriots are the defending champions. They've won six Super Bowls. So
okay.
I don't understand the question, but
so
go ahead and tell us. Go ahead and tell us how Alabama is still. What you want to tell us is that Alabama is still the dynasty of college football, right?
What I'm asking is, in order for, and according to you, you're implying that unless Alabama wins it every year, their dynasty is dead.
Listen, you know, one thing I'm getting maybe just a little tired of are Alabama fans putting words in my mouth. I've never said that.
I didn't say you said that. I said it's implying.
Well, I'm not implying anything.
You just told her that because we're number 12,
slow down a second.
We're in the Citrus Bowl.
Slow down a second, Big Al, okay? Listen, I didn't say Alabama's dynasty was over last year when they lost by 28 points because Alabama had swapped championships with Clemson. But this is now 2 years that Alabama has not won a championship. And all I've said,
last year, right?
to be accurate, is that the window on that dynasty is closing.
And
Thank you.
And what determines that? What do you think determines that?
My opinion.
Because we had a bad year.
I mean, I don't know if you had a bad year or not. You didn't win the national championship this year. And
no, we didn't.
It's
and
December 5th, and I can proclaim 1 month and 7 days before the national championship game, you're not winning it.
I didn't say we were. Just like 2010, we had a bad year. In Alabama fans' eyes, it was a bad year. This year, because we were decimated with the defense that was nothing but true freshmen, we still went 10-2. Not the kind of year we want, but just because we don't win it every year doesn't mean the dynasty's dead. When Saban leaves, the dynasty will be over.
Let me ask you a question. Hey, would you indulge me for just 1 second, okay?
Sure.
Since 2013, including the 2019 season, which is over now for Alabama,
okay,
how many national championships has Alabama won?
Since Saban's been there?
Please listen to me, okay? Since
you said since 2013.
Two people can't talk at once if one's asking the other one a question.
Go for it.
Since 2013, including, you're interrupting me again. Since
I'm just listening.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just listening, Paul.
Why don't you just be quiet and allow me to ask the question,
Why
okay?
don't you go ahead and talk? Finish up.
Thank you very much for telling me when I can talk. Since 2013, including 2019, please tell me how many championships Alabama has won.
4. We won it. We in 2013 we got beat by the Kick Six.
Right.
2014 we played in it.
No. The question was, How many championships has Alabama won since 2013, including the year 20? And your answer was 4, and your answer is incorrect. The answer is 2.
You're right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So let me ask you this.
No,
Do you know? Now
13, 14,
let me ask
15,
this.
16, 17,
That's fine.
18, 19.
Nick
That's 7.
Saban
Alabama has
five
won
national
2 of the last
championships
7
in Alabama.
national championships. My blithering friend, that is not a dynasty,
here's the
okay?
thing. You
That is
wanna
not
hear
a
your
dynasty.
only
I must
question.
cut you off because it's 6:30 and we have to go to a break. It's not that I'm cutting you off because you've given me a splitting headache. Welcome back. Glad you're here on what has been just a fascinating day on the program. Glad to take some more calls at 855-242-7285. And let's check in with Jason, who is up next. Hey, Jason, good afternoon.
Hey, how are you, Paul?
We're doing great. Thanks for the call.
Hey, I was just going to call in after listening to Jimmy earlier talking about, just Georgia doesn't stand a chance, and they might get run off the field on Saturday. But, if we go back and kind of look at the Auburn game, which is a common opponent, was probably the best defense they played. We didn't have Cager in that game. He got hurt on the first play. Pickens only had 1 catch for 11 yards. I think we'll miss his blocking as much as anything, but we had 3 other guys that stepped up between Harrion, Wolf, and Blaylock, that were there. And it's, every Georgia fan wants to see more offense. But if you look at things, maybe if Nick Saban ran the ball a little bit more and kept the ball out of Bo Nix's hands against Auburn, they don't put up 48 points. They don't have that chance to be in that shootout game. So, that's what I'm hoping for. And, I think they'll come and they'll be prepared. And like I said, just remind Squirrel that, Georgia did fire their coach for averaging 10 wins a season. And, I hope my son was listening. And, for some reason, he's an Alabama fan, but maybe Elizabeth will wake him up and he'll come on back to be a Dogs fan instead of, you just got to listen to a few of those people and realize that, it's not all centered around Alabama in the football world.
Well, listen, I don't know. I don't think I need to express my bona fides for Alabama. I think it's pretty well known, but I'm just trying to be realistic here. And I've said what I've said. I don't think what I've said is earth-shattering, that I feel like the dynasty window is closing. Closing is not closed, it's closing. But when you've won 2 out of the last 7 national championships, and we obviously can include this season, that doesn't necessarily qualify as a dynasty. It's incredible. And I mean, who has praised Nick Saban more than I have? And who's been accused of praising Nick Saban more than I have? I'm just trying to be real. That's all. Todd is up next. Todd, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for taking my call. Hey, I got 3 or 4 questions for you since everybody's on Bama. I want to ask you, how many teams in California is ranked higher than Bama?
Can't think of one.
I can't either, but O'Brien was running that big mouth yesterday. And let me ask you, has he forgot about them last 8 ass whoopings he got from Bama up until he wins this year?
Everybody's forgotten that.
Hey, yeah, they don't want to remember that. Well, let me tell you this: Georgia can win that ball game. They can put pressure on Burrow back there. That's going to be a different ball game than what everybody thinks. And I was mad last year after the championship. I called Saban a pissant, but I'll tell you this much: he's my pissant. And I tell you, and everybody else, he's made the SEC what it is. And without Bama, SEC would be the Pac-12 out there.
Well, listen, Todd, I don't think that's exactly accurate. In the last 20 years, Florida has won the championship a couple of times. LSU has won a couple of times. Auburn has won and played for it. I mean, Alabama is the most dominant school in this era, but they're not the only one.
Well, I know it, but we've held this SEC up there for about 8 years in a row.
Well,
nobody else has been up there.
I'm not really sure about that.
And all these coaching high salaries, they're because of Nick Saban.
Well, that is accurate. No, I give you that.
And also, Paul, your show wasn't on TV before Saban got there, and you can all of y'all. Every time he bends over, y'all ought to kiss his ass.
Well,
Roll
we will.
Tide.
We will. We will. And we do. Cowboy is up next. Hey, Cowboy.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you for calling.
Well, more than anything, man, I appreciate you taking my call. I worked late, a lot of hours, and trying to get into you is so hard. It's always an honor when I can finally talk to you.
Thank you very much.
But my thing is this here. These Alabama fans, the ones that talking about wanting to get rid of Nick Saban and all this and that, I mean, if you're a true Bama fan, you support your team. Like I have for many, many years. I watched the game when Pat Dye beat Bear Bryant for the first time.
That was
I was
amazing.
watching that. It was amazing. And the thing about it is, these Alabama fans, you know, we won these 5 national championships in 10 years. What is wrong with these people, Paul? And I want your take on that. That's what I want.
Well, Cowboy, listen, and I appreciate your call. We have to run to a break, but I understand the frustration with Alabama fans. It's almost been too easy. If you go back to 2009, the title, the 2010, a setback, 11, 12, nearly won one of 13, 14, Ohio State. And then it's just been a back and forth with Clemson. And it's difficult when you are used to being the top dog to suddenly, see yourself ranked number 12, find yourself scrapping for a bowl game in Florida that, quite frankly, is not going to be very compelling. And Auburn's ranked ahead of you, and Florida's ranked ahead of you, and Georgia's ranked ahead of you, and LSU. I mean, that is difficult. I'm sympathetic, but I just want people to understand that our job here is to talk about the entire world of college football, and I think when you're used to being the only one that people talk about, and by the way, that Nick Saban had won 5 out of 9 national championships. Nobody's ever done anything like that before. That's why he was declared the greatest coach of all time by people like me. But now he's won 2 out of the last 7. Dabo Swinney could win 3 out of the last 4 if he's the national champion. You can argue that your dynasty is better than his. We'll take a short break. And we welcome you back to the program. And Mary is up next in Birmingham. Hey, Mary.
Hey, Paul. I am a little embarrassed by the Alabama fans. I'm an Alabama fan, have been all my life. And yes, this is a sad year for us. But, there's a lot to be said for what we have done. And I just get frustrated because I feel like, it is a game. It means so much to everyone. But I am proud of the players. The coaches are fine, and I believe in Saban, but I'm proud of Mac Jones. Yeah, he made.
Listen, he was. I thought he was phenomenal, Mary. I mean, he was so close to being the hero, one of the great heroes in Alabama history.
I wanted it to happen so badly for him. Again, as we've had, Jalen came in, Tua came in. I mean, those are moments that you just think this is going to be phenomenal. This is what this young man has lived for. But it didn't happen. The game went the other way. And yet, I still think, Alabama's time is going to come again. I don't know about the other players. I think about Tua, and he has meant so much to our team. And I respect that young man so much. And he's gone through so many trials and so many adversities with his health. I don't know what's best for him, and no one really knows what's going to happen, but I believe he will come out triumphant, and he will be, I don't know, I just think he will have a great future. Mac Jones, even young Joseph Bulovas. I feel so sad for
listen,
that young man.
I agree, I haven't heard one reasonable person blame him, and I thought his statement was was fantastic. Well, thank you for the call, Mary. I really do appreciate it. Judy is up next. Judy, thanks for calling. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thank you so much. I was glad to hear Mary speak about some of the Alabama fans that have called in. You know, I went to my first game with my daddy when I was 3 years old, and now I'm 70, and I haven't been able to go to a game in like 4 years now because I'm not well. But I just think that some of the players, some of the people that call, I like Elizabeth. It's almost embarrassing because I don't feel like that, a lot of the people act the way some of them do that call you or feel the way that they do. They act like this is the first time since Saban has been coaching for us that anything bad has happened. All along the way we've had bad, disappointments, but we make it through it. And I just think that they need to think about like the players and how bad they must feel, because they're the ones that get out there day after day for hours after hours and try to do their very best and learn what they need to do from Coach Saban. And they make a huge sacrifice for us. And I feel really bad for them. And some of these whiny people,
Well, Judy, listen, number one, thank you for calling, and I do hope your health can improve a little bit. But it was nice to talk to you. All the best to you. And fans are fans. I do this. I understand. I'm sympathetic to those even when I don't agree. Jake is up next in Athens. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Paul. How's it going, man?
It's
great to talk to you. Always
you.
looked up to you. You're smart. I love your smirks and your kind of like your faces you make. Not a lot of people get it, but I get it. I've been watching since 2016.
Well, thank you. A lot of smirks tonight,
man,
Jake. I think we set a new record.
We got an outcast in the family. She graduated in Bama in 2009. So you know about those defensive championships, right? So what do you think? I honestly think, like these LSU people calling in saying that, I think it was earlier in the show, some guy named Joey from Louisiana saying that they're going to roast our DB. But I think we got a guy back there that's up for the Jim Thorpe Award. Is that I can't think of his name. Is it J.R. Reed?
Sounds familiar. I've seen him play once or twice.
Who's his uncle? Yeah, that guy, Ed Reed. Yeah,
he's good.
And we also got plenty of other players back there. We got Tyson Campbell. We got
now listen, Jake. I think it's great for Georgia's sake that nobody is giving them any chance.
And also, Paul, what happens when Jake Fromm's against the wall? Past 3 years, what always happens when everybody's on him and his back's against the wall?
No, nobody thought last year would be close or the year before.
Yeah,
well, the year before was they won. So
I want everybody. I want the media. I knew all year. Oh, Florida got their defensive ends back. Oh yeah, what did we do? We whipped their butt all game, man. Physically, on the line of scrimmage. Same with Auburn. Physically on the line of scrimmage, defensive and offensive, we whipped their butt.
Hey, Jake, listen, I wish we could talk longer. We're unfortunately out of time. We'll continue all this tomorrow. Everybody will be joining us in Atlanta, including Ric Flair and Jeff Foxworthy. Those are just the entertainment. Be a few football guests as well. We'll see you then. We are live on a Thursday afternoon, and we say hello to you. Welcome to the program. You can tell we're in a giddy mood. We had a little Christmas party, and I'm drunk with eggnog.
They're not fans of you here, Paul. We got a protest going on here on campus in Salt Lake City, and I don't know, Paul. This is not fine, Mom. They're pretty upset with this take. I mean, do you have anything to say to these protesters gathered behind me?
Listen, I'm all for young people expressing themselves, even if it's against me. There's BYU, there's Utah. Do they have any other schools out there? Utah State? So this this state with 100 people has 3 major universities?
You know, Paul, it's crazy things happen in this game in particular, and not many people are giving Georgia a shot. But I'm over here now in Athens. I've been here all week, and it's a very confident bunch that's really enjoying wearing that tag underdog.
I'm trying not to get upset. I'm going to be sober, Paul. Do you honestly mean your statement that you made to Andre that he's the first person I have been respectful to on this show?
He's the first person I don't remember you yelling at.
Burrow's never really been pressured that much this season. They run a quick pass offense, and Jamar Chase has never been covered really this season. So if he can be covered by one of the Georgia cornerbacks, and if they can get some pressure on Burrow, it might be a different game than LSU's used to.
When the game ended,
missed field goal.
I started to go to the Coosa River Bridge and jump off.
So he's saying the people in Jersey are sharper. They may have sharper objects on them, but they're not sharper than. I'm a Tennessean. He's talking to me. You talking to me, Greg?
I'm siding with Tennessee on that.
You're talking to me. I don't think we've done the game out in Santa Clara yet.
Could it have something to do with these people angry behind me, potentially?
Listen, it has nothing to do with my love for Utah. Hit the bell, Oregon.
Utah versus Oregon. Let's sound the alarm, and let's sound it twice because it is a big-time upset alert.
I mean, I can't get any more bad press from Utah, so why worry?
Put them on the alert.
Why try to suck up to them now?